Roll call, Lee Sharps.
Here.
Kathleen DeWolf.
Here.
Casey Barney.
Here.
Carol Lamos.
Here.
Fran Newton, here. Before we get started, were there any public comments on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we will approve the minutes or review the minutes of Monday, April 2nd. Are there comments, corrections?
Yep. And yes, I have a few.
Okay,
On page 2, line 35, it talks about the police department. It should say new 2018 police interceptor utility vehicle.
okay,
And also, line 42 after utility, it should say vehicle.
okay,
Next page, sentence 1, Chief Ray would thank the taxpayer for their support and put in there on voting day. It sounds like their support. But
Yep.
we don't know.
right,
And the next one, paragraph 4, lines 6 and 7, we should take out whether, it should say, discussion ensued regarding whether the recount is an extension of election duties or a separate expense. And take out should be considered in the part of the original payment,
okay,
right?
yep,
Okay. Line 34, same page, I believe it should say, the Board of Selectmen, not the Planning Board, received a letter from the Code Enforcement Officer. And after that, it should say, asking that the board override a Planning Board decision.
right,
And line 41, it should also say, Board of Selectmen.
Wait a minute,
Okay.
you're going too fast.
Sorry.
Okay, so code enforcement officer asking that go on. The planning board,
That the Board of Selectmen override a Planning Board decision.
right,
And then in line 41, it should also say Board of Selectmen instead of Planning Board.
okay.
Actually, I think it was.
yeah, no, that was correct,
Yeah, that was the.
to not override the
Oh, yeah, that
decision
one's
of the
correct.
planning board,
It actually was an
Yes.
appeal.
Yeah.
It wasn't an override, it was an appeal.
an appeal,
To appeal
Yeah,
decisions,
That's right. It
to
should be
not or
appealed.
to?
Yeah.
override the appeal
Yeah.
for the
To
decision.
not override
An appeal for the decision by the planning
To
board.
not appeal.
to not appeal.
to
Okay.
not appeal the decision. Okay.
Oh, on that same
Yep.
page, line 36, it should say Mill Pond Lane instead of road. Clarification.
Okay,
And on the next page, line 37, after the consensus, it should say the consensus of the Heritage Commission. And I think my last one is the same page, line 44, instead of was in the beginning of that sentence, it should say as.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
okay.
I was trying to go through it again.
Forgot.
Anything else?
I didn't, I have to think about that.
Any other
Make a
comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 2nd as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second said motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain. Okay, consent agenda. For the weeks of April 2nd, accounts payable was $208,375, payroll $25,273, and then $19,323 for NHRS. April 9th payroll, $17,078. I am going to skip the department head meetings at this point and the town administrator updates because we have some guests and I'd like them to do their thing, so they have the opportunity to leave early if they so choose. You're certainly welcome to stay. So I'd like to introduce Steve Felton, who's chair of the Economic Development Committee, and I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thanks, Fran. And what we want to do, there's a couple of members of the committee here and a couple of other people that have been involved in some of our recent meetings. And the purpose of this meeting is just to kind of give a update of where we're at as an Economic Development Committee on ideas and recommendations relative to the LW Packard Mill site and what maybe some of the next steps might be. So I wanted to you've got a couple of things in front of you. One is just kind of an agenda that talks about the key things we're gonna go over, and basically they are to review a couple of the points. We were here in December and kind of gave an overview, and we're just gonna touch upon a couple of things that we talked about at that overview. And then Tim Andrews is here from Novus to talk about the Brownfields 2 results from the mill site, specifically the Heath building area. And that was one of the things that we've been really waiting to find out, because how that Brownfields environmental study comes out is an important piece as to what we can do as next steps. And I'm going to let him kind of do a summary of some of the key points there. And then I think Chief Heath may be in later and to maybe talk about some of the fire safety concerns relative to that building and things that we need to watch out for from a personal property and river environmental standpoint. And then we'll go over some recommendations of next steps that either have to be done by the board or the economic development group or somebody else within the town. So just to go back to that staple page that you have that talks about the meeting from December, just a couple of things I want to add. A couple of new people that have been involved in it recently is Levi Bradley. Levi, can you just recognize yourself?
Yes, hello, nice to meet everybody, I'm Levi.
Levi's involved in developing a portion of the mill for a distillery in the Scribner building owned by Lane. So that's one piece of property that is in the process of being developed. And Anthony Adamski, who's not here right now, but he's been very involved in the Quincy Quail, and he's been attending a number of the meetings and is very interested in helping, doing whatever he can to help us in the development of that area. In addition to the other members of the economic development group that are here, including, Susan is here right now, and then this is Tim Andrews right here, who will speak relative to the Brownsfield. If you look towards the bottom of that first page, I'm not going to go through all of that, but some of the stakeholders that have to be involved in this thing are obviously the existing mill owners, the federal, state, regional, and local agencies that we've met with, and there was some pretty positive feedback about potential grants that are available to help develop this site, which was very encouraging. We've had more local business owners involved, a couple of them I just mentioned. And, some of our next steps is we want to get some of the more of the Selectboard, some of the other committee members from other boards, town employees and residents, more understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and, what we need to do to accomplish that. And we've got a couple of ideas on how to do that. And, making sure that all the residents are up to date as to where we're at and what the potential plans are. I'm not going to go through the rest of this. It's just kind of an update of what we had done up to that point. But one of the key things that's on the top of this first page is just reviewing Brownfield 2 progress, because really that is one of the next key things. So without wasting any more time, I want to just turn that over to Tim. And Tim, if you just give an overview to everybody of what Brownfields 2 is versus Brownfield 1 is,
Sure.
What all that means.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. So by way of introduction, I am Tim Andrews with Novus Engineering out of Concord, New Hampshire. I'm a senior project manager there that has managed the Brownfields site assessment work that we've been performing. I'm also the director of environmental services for our office. So for this, Novus has been engaged with the town of Ashland for several years now as we've sort of developed the strategy in trying to assist in this particular issue related to the LW Packard site. There have been prior Brownfields assessments performed on the site, but they hadn't been completed. So this has been an ongoing process that we've been engaged in finding beneficiaries in the state agency, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and the Lakes Region Planning Commission to provide Brownfields funding to perform these assessments. So specifically for these assessments, we're talking about the Heath-owned buildings of the mill complex, so that's the main mill building and the old boiler house property, not the adjacent properties which have been assessed and have, most of them have beneficial reuse already going on with existing holders of companies and businesses and other things going on there. So we wanted to take the ball and continue the assessment efforts. Prior to our work, a Phase 1 environmental site assessment was done for both of these properties through funding that Lakes Region Planning Commission had provided. A Phase 1 ESA, as we call it, is basically a simple review of the site current use, historical use, documents available in regulatory files, aerial photos, old Sanborn fire insurance maps, any type of information that we can glean as far as to use and potential impacts from an environmental perspective that a facility or a property may have suspect. So there's no sampling in a Phase 1, there's no determination of liability, there's nothing other than a recognition of these are the environmental concerns that do or may exist on the site and are preventing it from potential, resale or repurposing, reuse, because people are wary of or leery of the environmental liabilities. So to work off of the Phase 1 that had been done, we came up with a plan to do a Phase 2 environmental site assessment on these two properties. So for the boiler house property, there have been prior studies already performed for leaking underground storage tanks. So there's enough known about the subsurface conditions with the boiler house property that we did not have to do any type of investigation. It did necessitate a hazardous building materials survey to address potential asbestos, lead-based paint, and PCB containing building materials that may have to be dealt with during any demolition and renovation of that property. On the main mill building property, we needed to perform a hazardous building materials survey as well as a subsurface investigation because there was no data collected prior to our involvement with respect to subsurface conditions. And that particular building was where all of the dye of the materials occurred, all the wastewater collection and treatment occurred. So there were several potential sources of contaminants with respect to the past use of that building. So this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of the work that we do, and we do the sampling, we do the inspections. We were successful at getting grants from New Hampshire DES directly, as well as from the Lakes Region Planning Commission. So we have two pools of money, if you will, that we're providing input into this process. And fortunately, we were able to do all the work all at once, which is a lot easier than splitting up different phases of work and dealing with different reviews and oversight. It's the same regulators, same agencies, it's just different funding mechanisms. So the simplest part with respect to results, the building materials survey, there are hazardous materials, but it's not unlike any other industrial facility or historic facility out there that a common developer will come along to rehabilitate. Asbestos has been used in a fairly ubiquitous manner, as well as lead-based paint over the time that these buildings were constructed and renovated. So it's not surprising to find some materials. It's positive in the fact that there really weren't as many asbestos-containing materials in the mill buildings. They actually did a pretty good job of mitigating that as they went along through the historic use of those structures. They didn't get everything, but they got probably a vast majority of that. So there is some PCBs that we've detected in some of the paints, lead in some of the paints. There are some asbestos materials, but there's nothing really shocking about that any demolition contractor is going to be frightened by. So I'm not going to say it's harmless, but with respect to the conditions, it's probably par for the course with any facility of this age. With respect to the subsurface conditions for the main mill building, we conducted borings within the building, four soil borings beneath the foundation of the building, 2 into bedrock and 2 into the overburden of the soil above the bedrock, as well as 3 external monitoring well installations around the building in loading docks and areas where there could potentially have been spills in the past, materials come in and out. Those are typical areas where we like to look and maybe find issues have occurred. The results are very positive. The only issue, as far as a regulatory standard exceedance that was really detected, was arsenic was detected in one soil sample from beneath the mill building. New Hampshire has a lot of bedrock and a lot of minerals in the soils that frequently arsenic can be detected naturally in the soils, in groundwater, in people's drinking water wells, and it's just there as a matter of our geology. But in this circumstance, the sample we collected it from also had evidence of creosote as far as odor, building materials such as wood and other things that lead us to believe that there was probably something that was buried there at the time that they constructed the mill. Not uncommon in an urban setting. Your DPW probably deals with this type of material all the time when they're doing just routine maintenance on utilities, especially in an urbanized area. So fortunately, there's no groundwater impacts related to this soil exceedance, which means that we have a couple of options to deal with it. Number one would be to do an activity and use restriction, which basically identifies the area that the contamination that exceeds the standards exists, define that area, and then record that against the deed for the property. That basically is a flag to identify if the property changes hands, somebody buys it, somebody wants to redevelop it, they are made aware that you cannot dig, you can't access the soil in this area for risk of exposure without taking certain precautions, which would mean involvement by the DES to come up with a soil management plan, a sampling plan, those types of things. It's not an uncommon practice, again, in an urban setting or in settings where we have these types of impacts, because it can be costly to manage large areas that have otherwise, not really impactful issues. There's no risk of it getting into the groundwater. We have evidence that there's no groundwater impacts, so that would be allowable by DES. The other option is to, depending upon the style of renovation for the mill, if that area becomes accessible, we simply dig it up and we get rid of it. And then there's no deed restriction on the site, there's no encumbrance in the future, there's no flags that say there's an environmental issue, there's no stigma with it. So that may be, in the long run, the easiest and the simplest thing, is to come off with a clean deed, no activity and use restriction, assuming that it's cost effective to get at this location, excavate the soil. Excavating the soil and removing it is the easy part. It's getting equipment in, because in the basement, you're going to have to deal with this type of thing during demolition. We've got to cut open the foundation, those types of things. So those will all be things that have to be considered, but all in all, when you come out of it with a centuries-old facility and this is the only issue, it's a very surprising and positive outcome with respect to the stigma of the environmental impacts.
Great.
And Jim, did the DES go through this as well, is that correct?
Yes, so all of these reports have been reviewed by not just DES, but EPA as well, because the Brownfields funding comes from EPA sources originally, and then it gets filtered out through different agencies or nonprofit quasi-municipal agencies like planning commissions and things like that. So, but the EPA has some form of oversight, so we get the double review of the state regulators as well as the federal regulators on all of these projects.
Great. So Steve, if I might just interrupt at this point to see if the board had any questions in specific about the brownfields, or the public for that matter. So
I would like to just quickly too.
Sure.
There has been also a detection of these emerging contaminants,
Yes.
which there's no exceedance. So if you've watched the newspaper, watched the news about some of the towns down south, Merrimack, Hudson, down in that area.
Speaking of Saint-Gobain.
Saint-Gobain impacts of the perfluorinated compounds. So because in part of Saint-Gobain, as well as issues out at Pease, at the time the Air Force Base, and issues with their drinking water supplies that they've been dealing with for years, the state of New Hampshire has taken a very aggressive stance on these emerging contaminants with respect to looking at them at a number of sites around the state, establishing an ambient groundwater quality standard that's very low, but is within what the EPA currently has as sort of a advisory level, 70 parts per trillion. It's one of the lowest standards that we deal with other than for mercury and other highly toxic substances. Because it's emerging, there's still question about how it's being dealt with, what the future of some of the sites that are impacted with it are, you know, how are we going to remediate these sites and mitigate this in the future.
Okay.
It's being detected in a lot of places, including in some of the groundwater samples we collected here at the mill site. It's below the standard, so there's no regulatory need to do anything more as far as mitigating it at this time. However, because it was detected and we only did limited sampling, the DES has requested on their bill, if you will, another round of sampling from additional wells to see if we have something on the site that needs to be more thoroughly evaluated or identified. Currently, we don't have any reason to believe that there is. It's been used in a lot of places. It's present in firefighting foams, it's present in stain guard, it's present in Teflon. So it's been used reasonably, another wonder chemical that's been used ubiquitously in a lot of our products, and we're now figuring out it's out there in the environment, and they're figuring out what to do. So do want to point out that it's not an issue right now, but it does exist as a consideration, and depending upon, you know, there could be something about the next round of sampling where we detected in an area we didn't sample before. So we're not quite out of the woods yet with respect to that.
Okay.
But,
When is that sampling going to be done, Tim?
it would have been done 2 weeks ago, but my staff went out on the site, and most of the wells that were outside were thoroughly covered in snowbanks that were really iced up. So we decided
Spring is
to
coming,
wait.
it's okay. Yeah.
So we have it on the schedule for sometime the first week in May. So
Okay.
in a couple weeks, hopefully this weather gets out of here, it
Okay.
warms up, and it thoroughly melts out there.
All right.
So
Great.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to point
No,
that
no,
out.
it's
So-
important, thank you.
So we're talking about new sites to test below the bedrock and above, the same as what you did before, except in different spots?
I'm sorry, as far as for
The
this.
new round of
The
testing?
No, so the groundwaters, the sampling for the emerging contaminants is, there's not a lot of laboratories that have been set up for the sampling, because the laboratory equipment is like $1 million machine on its own. So it hasn't been highly requested up until recently. So a lot of laboratories haven't been set up for it, and it's a supply and demand type of thing. So the lab cost is at a premium. We're getting about $300 a sample right now, and that's by far the highest fee that we'll pay on any of the sampling that we've done on a per analyte basis.
Is this
It
in
coming down.
groundwater though, not soil or both?
Yes, this is groundwater.
Okay.
So, as a result of the high cost, the state has been reasonable to not ask us to do everything all at once. You know, they want to make sure that we're smart about using the funds that are available. They realize it's a burden, especially on municipalities and other fixed budget entities.
Okay.
So, but with the detection, we need to know a little bit more about the delineation of this. So we're going to go out to some of the wells we didn't sample before. So they're not
Right.
new wells, they're existing wells.
Oh,
They're just
okay.
wells that we hadn't sampled. We only sampled
okay.
2 out of 7 wells. So the idea would be to go back to
see.
those wells that we didn't sample before and get a comprehensive round of sampling from the network.
Other questions?
Speaking of water, I found it noteworthy in your report that the majority of the asbestos testing is actually on the eastern wall, the siding that's over water. So I understand that you can get your equipment into a lot of places, but have you guys thought forward whether or not you're going to close the dams, or how are you going to ensure the citizens of the town, if they do decide to take this building, that we're not going to be putting asbestos in a river that's upstream of protected wetland?
Well, that's something that has to be thought about, and that's been beyond our purview. At this point, we're just identifying the risks that are
That's a
there.
risk.
And you know, the next steps will be to identify what is the mitigation. Really, that'll be up to a contractor in some way who is licensed in asbestos abatement to determine the nature of the removal, because regardless of, you know, what other sensitive environments, the most sensitive environment they work in is the environment they're removing that stuff. So if anywhere they remove it, it's a fully encapsulated No fibers are supposed to be released
I just
at all,
asked,
so-
and that's not my forte, but I know that you can't hover an excavator over a river, so.
No, but they have there's a lot of means and methods of doing some of these things. A lot of that siding is not a particularly friable substance, so, it's not anticipated to cause a lot of issues with respect to dust and other things, but it's certainly a consideration, and they need to capture everything, so that will definitely be something that will be within the scope of the abatement contractor that has the license and the liability protection and everything to do that work at the time.
Other questions from the board?
So far, this has cost the town zero, correct?
That's correct. As far as anything that we have done on the Phase 2 environmental site assessment, it has all been basically a gift of services, if you will, from the Department of Environmental Services and from Lakes Region Planning
I
Commission.
think that's important for the public
Yeah,
to
thank you,
know.
Kathleen. Are there any comments from the public on the brownfields before we go on? All right, thank you so much, Tim, and we'll look forward to another update in May for the
And I
emerging.
have these for you.
Oh,
Nice.
Hey,
The two
Little
hard
lights.
copies
Like
of
reading
each
material.
report.
okay, thank you.
We'll put those
We'll
right
put
by
these in the town hall. Pass those over to Charlie so
There'll
Wendy
be a
can...
test of
Yeah, we work hard
Yeah.
on those.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it.
The next thing we wanted to touch on, and it doesn't look like Chief Heath can be here, but he'll be at a future meeting, and one of the things we talked to him about was from the standpoint of fire and safety concerns, and he has some significant concerns there, especially, as do some of the neighboring abutters, to that building, is if it were to catch on fire, how would it spread? How would the fire department put that fire out? And it's very high on his list of challenging. If there were a fire there, it would be very challenging for them to be able to deal with it from the property standpoint, obviously personnel standpoint of the firefighters involved, and anybody around that area, and then any potential environmental issues if anything went into the river. So we only mentioned that because that's something that we have to be cognizant of and think about. Whatever the next steps are that we as a town decide to do, we need to keep those things into consideration as to how we want to approach that. And I'm going to ask Susan, jump in anytime you want on anything that we're talking about, and Tim, I'll Levi, you the same thing as we go through a couple of these things. We talked about, some of the different recommendations of next steps, because like the brownfields was the big thing that we needed to get through, and that came out a lot more positive than we thought it could, so that's a very good thing. And to Kathleen's point, all of the money expended there did not come from the town, they came from other agencies. And one of the encouraging things that I think we all have found is when we had that summit meeting a few months ago with all the different agencies involved, there was a lot of positive feedback from them that they would like to potentially get involved in assisting us in grants and other things to help us to develop that site. So I think the potential exists for us to be able to get a lot of funds to do this so it doesn't come out of the town, because that's obviously everybody's biggest concern.
Including a cleanup grant, as I understand it.
Yeah, including a cleanup grant, including things like, assessment of the structural integrity of the building. There's a lot of those kinds of things that we could get monies on, but the problem is a lot of those monies are not going to be available unless that building is owned by the town.
Right.
And that, that's something that, as a board, you're gonna have to think about and figure out if you want to do that and how you want to do that. But to really get to some of the next stages of development, I think that's something that is gonna have to be dealt with. One of the things we talked about is, well, what's the object? You either do nothing or you do something. What's the upside and downside of each of those? And, we talked about doing nothing, what does doing nothing do? Just a couple of things that it does. First of all, we continue to get no property tax dollars from that piece of property. Second of all, it restricts additional mill development, because there's going to be developers that are questioning.
Continues to degrade the area.
It continues to degrade the areas, and, those buildings, and, Levi can speak to some of the, some portions of that building are not looking real good where you could have some, wall just kind of like fall right down.
Yeah, sure, I can make a mention as well. There's certain aspects of me, what I have to do with the property that I'm interested in that is associated with the Heath building, that the TTB makes regulations on me to appropriate, such as the type of wall structures that would separate me from that type of property is much more financially important to me to deal with rather than if the building wasn't there or if it was some other type of property that didn't have the concerns that this one does. So that was, for me, looking at it, it's a concern of mine as well that I have to look at, and that was also my original interest in getting involved with the project also.
And there are other people, there are other mill owners within that complex that have communicated that same concern. Fire safety issues we already talked about, and the longer that sits there, the bigger those issues are potentially going to get. And realistically, as a town, we now know what the situation is there. So to sit there and do nothing probably doesn't look like a good decision on our part either. And we already talked about, business operating in that, there right now, and their desire to, obviously have the area better developed. And, the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones, is definitely to really develop that the way we need to. We need to get some expertise and studies and things done that we as a town don't want to pull all of that money out of our own funds. And we feel pretty comfortable that there are other agencies that will help us get there, but again, they're not going to do that unless we own the property.
Steve, you might also mention the fact that it's an attractive nuisance, and we do, sustain some liability there by, having it be accessible, even if it's been boarded up a lot to youth who go in there.
Yep.
So that's a real risk to us.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Just to speak a little bit, Steve, to
Yes.
the funding issues relative to this from the Brownfields perspective. So the town could apply for Brownfields funding on a per lot basis up to $200,000 from EPA. The Brownfields cleanup funding is the next step in the Brownfields process. And the goal of the overall Brownfields process, as overseen by the federal government, is to take these properties that have these liabilities that they're burdened with and are doing just what the mill is doing, is not contributing to your tax base, it's not bringing viability and job base or anything like that, and it's a risk to your community, as environmentally and as well as other reasons. But and to help remove the stigma of that liability. So through the Brownfields process, we can apply for the cleanup funding, get the cleanup done, and once the cleanup has been completed in accordance with the remedial action plan that's been approved by the state and the EPA, you can then apply for a covenant not to sue from New Hampshire DES, from the state of New Hampshire, that will go with the title of the property. So it's basically a limitation of liability on the property that you can sell with the property. So it's not just the town that would get this, it would be future people who would buy the property. It covers the issues that have been assessed and remediated. It doesn't cover unknowns that could pop up. They find an underground storage tank that we didn't know was there, we couldn't detect. It doesn't cover those types of things. But it does protect against the liabilities that have been identified through the Brownfields process. So the other aspect of that is the timing that it takes. It took us 3 years to get to this point for the assessment. There is no such thing as free money, really. It takes effort on parts of your volunteers who are working on this, and it takes a lot of patience and to keep going back and submit the applications for these funds. So the longer that you delay in that, you're stretching out the life cycle of this if you are going to plan on tapping into those available governmental funding mechanisms. And there may be other mechanisms, EDA funds or other things, Northern Borders grants, other things that the town could apply for in assistance with respect to, the cleanup and the planning of the redevelopment that the Brownfields doesn't quite cover. those need to be evaluated too. But from my perspective, the Brown, it can be a drawn-out process in order to get that funding. So if the town is willing to take it, because you have to have ownership.
Good Dorothy.
You have to have ownership at the time of the grant.
Yeah.
You know, that's the time you can't get the services from somebody else.
Right.
You have to get the grant yourself and implement it. That's where the rubber hits the road with
Yeah.
respect to the cleanup and the mitigation of the environmental issues.
Which is why the timing is such an important piece of this whole
Yep.
thing. One of the other things that we discussed as a committee, and we've talked about, and I know we've gotten some of the answers to this, but I don't think we've gotten all of them, is the need for the town to seek the qualified legal advice on some of the legal questions relative to that property, going back to things like if we were going to take back the property, making sure that all the ducks are in the row so that we would know what the process is, how long the process will take, what could potentially slow down the process. So we need somebody that knows that process so that we can make sure that we get through it as efficiently as possible and identify any potential issues before before we do anything. Need to probably get a clearer understanding of the deeded ownership, because I don't know, we're not going to go through that now, but anybody that knows anything about it, it's not the clearest thing there. So I think we need to make sure that the ownership deed is very clearly delineated, and we know that, and define a timeline and a process to make all of these things happen. And really, those all hinge on you as a board making that decision and getting some of the answers to those questions. I know we've gone over those. Susan captured them pretty well from our meetings. I think you all have a copy of what some of those questions are now, but that's probably, in my mind anyway, and I think in our mind, that's one of the critical next steps. We talked about brownfields being a big step, and that's come out nice. The next thing we need to do proactively is making sure from a legal standpoint, we're looking at it at all angles so that we minimize any risk to the town and aware of the whole process that's involved. Anybody from the group have anything else to say on that?
So with respect to other liability protections, when my knowledge, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm a geologist, so just out on the table with that. But there are liability protections for municipalities who take properties for tax deed taking, because it's an involuntary taking, if you will. And so when it comes to liabilities related to the environmental impacts, there are limitations of that. And we work with other towns and cities all the time who do this and have brownfield sites, and working with Franklin on a site like that right now. Because the state recognizes that without having some assertion of control over these facilities, that a town is handcuffed, and they don't want that stigma on a tax deed taking.
Right.
So I think you should look into that. I don't know the details of that, but I know that there's precedent from work that I've done in the past with other municipalities.
Okay, well, it's good to know.
I'd like to say, was it 3.5 years ago, when Susan recruited me as an ad hoc member from the Conservation Commission to come to the meetings? This seemed like this could never happen. And the group's come a very, very long way. And it's not as horrifying, I think, as everybody thought it was going to be. I mean, I think everybody thought, oh, this is just going to be horrendous. And let's just put it in the back of our mind and try to think positive thoughts. So I attended your last meeting, and and it reminded me that I've come a long way.
Thank you, Kathleen.
And it seemed like it was going to be a point that was almost impossible to get to that point. And I said, it could have been worse.
Could have been a lot worse.
We could have been worse.
So to back up to the legal matter, have we had any outreach from our attorney? Has our attorney lent any opinion to this yet?
We have
Did any of
sent
the
Charlie,
information, or-
we sent Charlie a list of questions some time back. Susan has a copy here. There has been some feedback. We also showed this to Patsy because we wanted to know, just for example, how much in taxes have we missed for the last several years. I know they also owe water and sewer a hefty sum. So we want answers to all of these questions. And I'm not sure that the information we get from our attorney is good land use stuff. So that's something we have to look at and evaluate.
At the end of the day, he's still our attorney, though.
I know he's our attorney, but there, we have to make sure that we have the right information and the right source. But these questions need to be answered, and I assume you still have a copy, Charlie. We have the questions and the responses that we've gotten thus far. I can go over them briefly if anyone wants. The ownership, as Steve already mentioned, the tax lien, what that is, how long it's been going on, documentation of the last tax payment, was the decision made by the previous BOS regarding back taxes and payment on restructure with the mortgage holder. With a Brownfields report complete, the town will have a better sense of hazardous liability issues, which what Tim just talked about. And if we take possession, the covenant not to sue, we need to be real comfortable with the answers to those questions. What liability exists for the town to do nothing, and Steve addressed some of those points. Is a warrant article necessary? And I think we've reassured ourselves that a warrant article wouldn't be necessary. It's a board decision. Obviously, we would have public input, public hearing. And if we take the property, what sections of RSA Chapter 80 are in play? Can the town spend any appropriated funds toward matching an EPA cleanup grant, et cetera? So these are some questions we need, good solid answers to. I think that the biggest complication is definitive ownership from my perspective.
So there was no thought that with it being such a large percentage of our downtown district that perhaps it should be a special meeting or a warrant for that size of property seizure? And we're not talking about a corner
We'd
lot
have a public meeting, but you don't need a warrant for that.
Well, it depends how much you're going to ask the liability to be assumed by the taxpayer. If
Well, what we're saying is that there is no liability. We're going into this with the assumption that we won't have a liability. We get a release from the state, and our purpose in taking it is not to make money. We don't want to become real estate brokers. It's not to rebuild the property. It's to get the cleanup grant and leave it out there for a developer to either purchase and rebuild or tear down or whatever they decide to do with it. At this point, there is absolutely zero plan for the building. We just need to know what possibilities there are.
No, I understand that. All I'm saying is I just sat here and listened to your man say that if they find something that wasn't there before, that's not covered. So obviously there's some assumed liability if we dig something up we didn't know was there.
Well, that's true with anything that people buy. I mean, you can find an Indian burial ground when you build a house,
It's not on our shoulders, it's on the whole tax base, so, it might be good.
What
You do
you were
have
saying
a-
is for a covenant for a deed. It wouldn't be our responsibility at that point.
When you take it, if you do your phase one environmental site assessment, which is recognized by EPA and other entities as an all appropriate inquiry, it gives you an innocent landowner provision. So there's legal precedent about liabilities and what, you could be held strictly liable for versus, I'm not saying that you wouldn't have to deal with it, but it's different than if you buy a site with an underground storage tank on it, knowingly, and it has a release, well, you're strictly liable for that. Whereas if you do a phase one ESA and it comes up, hey, we didn't observe anything, you went through the right processes, you have there's some protections for innocent landowners, so I'm sorry to...
And again, we're going to get answers to all of these questions before we make any bold move about taking it or anything else. That's the next process, is to get the definitive answers to these questions, like what liabilities are out there and what we can do as a town. Yes, Susan?
Well, I talked to Alan Peterson of the EPA.
Yes.
And he guided me towards this workbook, which I downloaded and sent to Charlie and you. It guides you through absolutely everything, step by step. Every question you should be asking and whatever else. And it's 210 pages long. Some of them are just worksheets or anything, but it helped me get to sleep at night sometimes. So if you have
Send me that
sleep
later.
problems.
Well, I think Charlie should share it with the whole
I think
board.
so, yes.
And it's something that we can discuss as part of this this data gathering process.
Well,
Thank you.
It enlightens you as to what questions you're not even thinking to ask.
Right.
Because you'll have a step-by-step of what you should be asking before you make any
That's great.
decisions in what your next move is. Because again, there are other options that you can pursue. Depending on, as you go through the workbook, as to coming to a point where you know what your property recovery action plan is going to be.
Yep,
And Alan was the EPA project officer
For
who
this,
reviewed all
yeah.
of the work that we did
Yeah.
on this.
yeah.
Is that, did you say that's gonna be a town, that is a town hall?
Well, Charlie has it,
sent it
and I have it. We can make sure that we all have
It's in
it.
the Dropbox.
Okay.
and
Yes.
it's-
We-
I just didn't want to print it on.
No. I think we should share it with the whole board, and at
Yes.
some point,
Share
we
the
can
link.
dedicate a work session, and maybe in
Yes.
conjunction again with the
Right.
economic development. Again, we're not here to make decisions
good,
tonight.
yeah.
We're here to
Just get
lay
an
out,
assessment of what-
make an
what
assessment,
recommendations.
exactly. Yeah,
Where we stand.
right.
Yep. You know, the next bullet point talks about stuff we already talked about, you know, the property, if the town owned it, all the benefits that would accrue from the ability to get grants and things like that, for everything from structural assessment to project planning and management, so that we could continue on with the development of that whole site. And then, you know, last bullet point talks about, you know, seeking, when we met with all of the different agencies in, I think it was November, you know, one of the things that came up was Plan New Hampshire's ability to do a charrette, which would be basically focused on the mill specifically, and it would give us an opportunity for, you know, residents and everybody
Yeah.
to get involved in it. We would be able to do you know, a nice PowerPoint and a really good presentation to
Yeah,
kind of
great.
get everybody up to speed as to what it is, what we're trying to
Yep.
do, what some of the pros and cons are. And then at the charrette, there would be, you know, people from Plan New Hampshire, and they get experts from all of the different fields there, and you just kind of begin to develop consensus
Yep.
and a plan, and it helps educate the community on what it's all about, and allows them to ask questions.
Now, I did speak with Robin LeBlanc last week from Plan New Hampshire, and she had come to our summit meeting, and she was very excited to hear from me again. And she said she would be willing to come and do a presentation for the board any night, just to let us know what's involved
That'd be
and what
nice.
we can hope to gain out of it. Those of us who were around for the charrette that we had before, it really engaged the whole town into a lot of brainstorming. You know, people keep saying, what's your idea for the mill? What's your vision for the mill? I don't know. You know, we just want to clean it up
Right.
and we want to, you know, make it viable again somehow, some way.
An
So
empty spot could be more valuable than the building itself.
It-
If somebody come in
you
with something
don't know
brand,
that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Brand new.
So, you know, that could certainly be a
Right.
step that we take. It's no cost to us to have her come and do a presentation sometime, so,
That would be good.
yeah.
So that, you know, that's, anything else that anybody else wanted to add to what we've talked about? So, you know, really the next major steps that we could see is, A, making sure that all those legal questions are identified and looked at. B, probably working with Plan New Hampshire and begin the planning stages of a charrette, and then, you know, Brownfields, what is it, Brownfields 3, is that what it's called?
It is a phase 3, it would be the cleanup planning portion of it, and then implementation of the cleanup.
Yeah.
So-
But again, that can't be done until we have taken it over.
So for the cleanup planning could potentially be done through some additional grant monies.
Yeah. Okay.
For our particular purposes with this site, the issues are hazardous substance related and they're not petroleum. So Brownfields, to give you a little bit of there's a lot of detail that goes into programmatic stuff of Brownfields, so it's complex sometimes to talk in
Yep.
generalities. But Brownfields comes in two colors of money, essentially. There's petroleum money and there's hazardous substance money. This site is, the issues that we have are not petroleum related. So we would have to find some hazardous substance funding available either through DES or LRPC
Okay.
to go forward and do the next step, which would be the remedial action plan,
Yeah.
as we call it in New Hampshire, or EPA calls it, an assessment of brownfields cleanup alternatives, or an APCA.
Okay.
We love our
Acronyms.
acronyms and everything.
Thank you.
So that's probably a low-cost item. It's a couple $1,000s, $5,000 probably, and that's where you get your cost estimate.
Yeah.
You know, we go out and we get provisional idea of what it would cost. We do an engineering evaluation of the abatement cost. What are the potential issues with the abatement, accessing some of these complex areas? What would it cost if we wanted to, you know, address the soil in the basement, those types of things. So that's where you would get your plan together, if you will, that actually evaluates different options that you have and identifies the preferred remedial action based upon a number of criteria. Cost, effectiveness, implementability, timing, those types of things. Once you have that in place, because you'll have to have a draft ADCA in
Yeah.
place
Okay.
to apply for the cleanup grants anyway.
Okay.
With this site, it's pretty easy because
Okay.
we don't have a whole lot of options with respect to how to mitigate. For
Yep.
the building materials, it's an abatement. There's no
Yeah.
question as to what you do with it.
Yeah.
For the basement issue, it's an institutional control or it's remove the soil.
Okay.
So that would be the next interim step, and we could
So we could do
potentially
that in
get some money.
parallel to some of the other things?
Could, and
Okay.
we can put a bug in DES's ear about maybe helping with that last step if
Okay.
it's something that, after that, it gets into the cleanup phase.
Yeah.
Because by that time, all your planning and assessment is done and you're ready to clean up the site. And that's
Okay.
a separate source, or
Okay.
separate fund, if you will.
Okay.
So it sounds like that part 3 we should get done.
We should evaluate
We
it
should
once
evaluate
we're ready to move forward on, having a decision as to what the disposition of
Right.
the
Yep.
property is. I can tell you that LRPC doesn't have any more hazardous substance monies available because of, it's the money we use the most because it's the most common funding that's needed. There may be opportunities with DES
Okay.
in the coming year if they can set aside a small amount of money. And having come as far as we have, they may be able to find
Okay.
a little bit of
Yeah.
money for
Yeah,
that. So
great.
that might be something to consider in the near future to ask them about.
Okay.
That's good. Any other questions anybody has?
Questions from the audience? So I think at this point, we need a commitment at least to work as a board and also in joint with the with the Economic Development Committee to ensure that we've studied the document, that we come up with a reasonable, we can't go to the town unless we have a story to tell them. And getting the answers to these questions and other things that may come up, I think is essential before we start talking about any next decisions. But there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot to be positive about as far as I'm concerned. Like Kathleen said, we've come a long way, and it's a slog, and we'll keep slogging along. But I'd like a motion that we will, at least continue this process of coming up with a definitive picture of what our, liabilities and legal standings are.
I'll make that motion to continue the process of finding what our legal answers to our legal questions and where we stand in the process.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
To further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We should not have this language either. Make sure that this is on the project list, Charlie, and that, we set aside fairly quickly a dedicated time because there's still a lot of slogging to do before we can get to some of the bigger questions and planning and so forth. But I think we should make this a high priority.
Yes.
I would like to thank the group, once again, a very small group of volunteers who dedicated their time and energy to get us to this point.
Yes.
And it's invaluable.
Thank you.
And I wish more people would step forward.
I wish they would too.
And participate.
And, we're constantly inviting new members. To all of our boards, yes, we'd love more participation because, this is a fun project. It's hard work, but it's fun because the payoff, the rewards could be fantastic for the whole town. So I urge you all to come to the meetings and think about joining us.
Like the little engine that could.
Exactly. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Steve, Susan,
Thank you.
Tim, much appreciated, and you will keep us posted, and likewise, we will do the same. When is the next meeting, Steve?
The next meeting is 20, let's see.
Oh, before we adjourn, we had asked Bino LaMontagne, who's a member of the committee, to give us some examples of what could be. And so he just sent me this letter, and I'd like to read it because it came to the Board of Selectmen. The town of Groveton suffered a devastating loss when Wano Corporation decided to close... Wausau? Oh, yeah, Wausau. That's a tiny little print. Decided to close down operations, effectively costing approximately 700 jobs. those of you who lived in the town know that this was the lifeblood of the town for many years. It's taken years to begin the recovery process. The first step was to apply for federal Brownfields monies, which we've done, to clean up the site, which we hope to do. They did so through North Country Council Regional and Planning Commission. The site was tested, cleaned up, and monitored. It was ultimately deemed free of pollutants and ready for development. After many buildings were torn down, some sold for scrap metal, the remaining buildings were prepared for reuse. At this point, the site no longer had water and sewer. The town of Groveton applied for Northern Border Regional Commission grant, as well as a U.S. Economic Development Administration grant. It's important to point out that by this time, the town property tax rate was out of sight due to the loss of the Wausau paper, its biggest property taxpayer. The match for town grants needed totaled $400,000. The select board brought this request to their annual town meeting with full support. It was a risk that the town's tax rate was very high, and there were really no guarantee that a new employer would come to town. The townspeople rallied and voted to raise the sum of $400,000 for the purpose of a match toward the Northern Border Regional Commission grant and the Economic Development Administration grant. It took a few more years for the Development Administration grant. It took a few more years for the department I work at, the Department of Business and Economic Affairs, to find a new employer. We are thankfully successful in attracting a Vermont company named NSA, who came and hired 40 people 16 months ago. As of this month, they've grown to 115 employees with good jobs and benefits. It is my sincere hope that we in Ashland will do the same. And again, our property isn't nearly as extensive. And we're not talking about that kind of money by any means yet, but this is an example of something that was devastating to a town that basically got turned around. He apologized for not being at the meeting. But he just wanted to make sure that people had this example.
I can speak to that. I just
Okay.
finished last night a book exactly about this. The title is A Job for Life, and it was done by a student at Plymouth State, and it goes through step by step the rise of the paper mill companies in the North Country, and how they crashed, and how devastating it was. I just finished it. I'll be returning it to the library in case anybody else wants to look at and read it. But there were an awful lot of parallels because basically Wausau came in, was the last buyer, and shut it down. Boom. 300 some people lost their job. So, and if you've ever been to Groveton, there isn't much there.
And the hardware store.
And you know, it was devastating. The town just.
So we're in a much better position.
We are, but they had the same issues because it goes through the whole process of the chemicals that we use and the dumping into the river and all the mitigation that had to be done. So there are a lot of parallels. And Bino grew up in Groveton, so this is part of his, his childhood and teen years. So anybody that grew up here in Ashland probably can look back and remember how things changed over the years.
Next economic development meeting is Tuesday, April 24th at the fire station at 6:30.
So please come. Thank you, guys.
I want to mention too,
Yes,
I
Tim.
managed the work, the Brownfields work at the Groveton.
Oh, you did? Okay. Thank you, Tim.
It's a process.
It is a process.
We spent a lot more money and a lot more time up there than we have here.
I bet.
That one was surprisingly clean at the outset as well.
Wow, okay.
Comparatively.
Okay.
It is a good story, and
All
it's
right.
good to see that it's coming back.
We would love to hear more about it at some point. Thank you, Tim. Thanks, Steve, again. Yes.
While Levi is here, I meant to do it at a December meeting, has nothing to do with this, but he donated several strings of LED lights when we were decorating. He stopped, he saw us, Susan and I and Kathleen, decorating the trees, and he stopped and was very nice to donate a lot of lights.
Well, thank you, Levi.
And he also volunteered to help us next year. He said, just let him know.
Oh, you're on the hook now, guys.
He says he does that holiday decorating. So
Wonderful. Excellent.
thank you.
All right. Thanks, Levi. Stick around. Okay, now can we go to our department heads? Public Works, Craig, you want to come in and talk about loader?
Can I have a signature?
Sure.
Oh, sure, sorry.
So we've We've looked at 3 different loaders, and we decided to go with the same loader that we have, which is a John Deere, and partly because of the safety. All the other loaders are operated a little different going forward and backwards. So we all thought it would be good to stick with what we know, less accidents. So they're all pretty comparable, just so everybody knows. So we're gonna go with John Deere again. So we're about ready to make a decision on that. So I just wanted to, 2 things, 2 parts. I want to get your permission to go ahead and go into a contract with John Deere, number 1. And number 2, we've had a lot of inquiries about the old loader. So the way we set it up was it was going to be traded in. We were going to get $10,000 for it. But there's a lot of people that have been interested in it that have come in and say, look, is this going to go out to bid? So I talked to Charlie a little bit. He thought we should bring it up to you and see if you want it to go out to bid. And we put a $10,000 minimum bid on it. Some people have, thought maybe that's worth $16,000.
Hey, if we can get more for it, why not?
Even if we get $2,000 for it.
Yeah.
So we want to get your permission, but the problem is that money would have to go back into the loader, and for the loader.
Oh,
So it needs to be transferred back into the.
Of course.
Right.
It will lower the appropriation.
Yeah, no,
Right.
that's fine. Can I have a motion to approve going out for bids for the sale of the?
make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I'm glad to see you negotiate a price up as well as
Yeah,
you
it's
can
wonderful.
negotiate a price down.
We'll see what happens.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And in terms of the contract, do we know what the price is yet?
It's going to be the same price as
That
what
was on the warrant?
negotiated
Okay.
on the warrant.
Okay.
They had to do some, because everything goes up.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm not going to do it unless you can hold that price. So,
Okay,
he fudged the numbers a little bit and
great.
got it back down to where it was, so.
So in that case, a
So we're
motion
good.
to approve the contract negotiations for the loader?
I'll make said motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Have you got your new piece of equipment yet?
Wednesday, it's coming.
Okay, great.
Do you have a ribbon cutting or anything like that? No?
I didn't plan on it.
All right. Take it for a spin up North Ashland Road.
We will. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Craig. Police Chief, Tony?
I'm here to talk about the decals for the cars. I got 3 estimates.
Okay.
I'm doing the decals from the cars, which shows me that, it's kind of wasting my time, but I feel bad for the other 2 firms that I had to ask for estimates, pretty much knowing well that they probably wouldn't be in the ballgame.
Well, at least we
I will tell
followed
you
the
that I
process.
did cutting-edge graphics out of Northfield. They came up with a price of $550 to decal the car.
Yep,
I also got a quote from Advantage Signs in Concord, New Hampshire. They had a price of $560.43, so they're within $10. And I got a quote from Jay Demers from JD Designs here in Ashland, and her quote was $381.
okay, good.
Basically, the difference is that she has the stuff all set up. There's
Yep.
no setup fee.
Right.
Okay,
So, because she's been doing this
Yep.
stuff for us, so I would like authorization to have her move forward with decaling the new cruiser. if that's
okay.
acceptable.
Motion to approve the bid from J. Demers or JD Designs for the
I'll make that
decal.
motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll have to abstain on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Tony,
Great.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other department head issues, Charlie, that we know of? Okay, old business, town administrator updates.
Did you want me to go, or?
No, go
you want the
ahead.
other
Dave's
people?
he has to stay around anyway, so.
Okay.
It's needed.
All right, here's what's going on with a couple of the departments.
Okay,
Library, people keep continuing to visit the library. They had 492 people visit in March. The computers were used 72 times. They circulated a total of 86 audios and ebooks in March. They got a couple new books, 32 books for adults and 26 for children in March. And there's some events coming up for the library. There's a teen night at the library, which we held Friday, April 27th from 6:30 to 8:30. There's knitting group meets every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Do you go to that, Kathleen?
Yes, I have.
Every Tuesday?
I haven't gone every
Oh,
Tuesday, but
okay,
I've
but,
gone,
okay,
yes.
all right.
Could need some mittens in today's weather, huh?
We're not talking about it.
Preschool story time will take place on Friday, May 4th from 10:30 to 11:30 in the morning, and the library will offer drop-in craft and play time in the afternoons during April school vacation. And book discussion group will meet on Monday, April 30th at 7 p.m. to discuss the New Hampshire classic John Goff's Mill by George Woodbury. Okay, good news coming out of Parks and Rec. Ian was here a couple weeks ago and talked about raising money for the new playground at the ballpark. Well, the Parks and Rec received a generous donation of $10,000 from Stony Lonesome Farm, and they agreed to match
Who
up
was
to
that?
$10,000.
In addition to the 10 donate, so it's a
Up to
total
20,
of 20?
right? Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Nice.
That's fabulous.
So what is this group? I looked it up and I couldn't find anything except
Up
in
on Highland
Virginia.
Street.
No, they're on Levitt Hill?
Levitt.
Levitt Hill.
So
Oh.
they don't have a, you Google them, it doesn't show up as anything local.
But in any case, that's
Sto-
fabulous.
Yeah,
And
that's a great
fabulous.
start.
Was this,
Yeah, it is.
was this the project that you were looking to, the federal grant money that had been provided for the previous playground? Is that?
That
in
replaces
question?
it.
Well, that was one of the things that I asked Charlie to verify,
Yeah.
that if we,
Yeah.
to
Yeah, we
replace
started to
it,
look into that.
that we need to make
Yeah.
sure that it's okay, because
Right.
we've gotten a grant before.
Yeah.
I don't imagine there would be an issue
Yeah,
replacing playground equipment that's hazardous to
Yeah.
children,
No, I don't
but,
either.
but we
Just
do
make sure we
need-
dot
yeah.
the i's and cross the t's.
Absolutely, Harold,
Yeah,
absolutely.
probably just a phone call
Yeah.
because of all the brouhaha over the
Right,
rat. because it was
exactly.
tied in with
Yeah.
this
And the ramp
federal-
that was put in without their permission.
Right,
I
right.
think,
So, but
at the end of the day today, I think I found when the town passed that.
Okay,
So that's like sort of my starting point to look up the history of it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
It'd be good to get a new piece of equipment down there.
Well, it's long overdue, it's really needed, okay.
all right, Director Barney finished the recertification process for Food Bank. So after-school programs will still qualify to receive snacks.
Wonderful.
You know, that's been a great asset to the town.
No kidding.
You know, the department saves a considerable amount of money. Cleanup at the campground and the beach has been scheduled, will take place April 1st before the May 1st opening.
April 1st? Oh, did it
Wait,
take
sorry,
place?
May 1st. Sorry, I was kidding.
Good luck.
April Fool's joke. Thanks for paying
Yeah.
attention. So Dr. Barney talked to AP Blake about coming out and turning on and getting the water heater ready for the campground. Basically, you know, getting
Yeah.
the campground ready for
Yeah.
coming months. Parks and Rec have 3 events planned for April at the Booster Club. Their April 20th is Kids Night Out from 6 to 8:30. And the following night is the second annual
Morning.
Easter egg hunt. Excuse me, that's in the morning. Parks and Rec will be holding the week of camp for April vacation, which is next week. Oh, and also, you know, all this and these events are on the website. PBS station, they get sent to the school, they're in the paper,
Great.
and it's advertised.
Excellent.
Okay, town website. This one's new. We have a new employment and appointments page, which is on our website. There's obviously what I just mentioned, excuse me, about the reminders with school vacation and for Parks and Rec and things for the town library. There's also a section for 4th of July committee about the upcoming events and the 150th anniversary committee for their events coming up.
On the town website,
Yep.
this is not on the agenda, and maybe I need to talk to Mardine, but for some reason, my town email has gotten hopelessly screwed up, and it might be just because I have a Mac.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come up with the page that it usually
Right.
does. I had to import it all into my
Wow.
my Apple mail,
Wow.
and then it got mixed in with all of the other
Huh.
iCloud mails. I don't know what's going on, but every
Yeah.
time I opened it up, no matter what computer,
Right.
I got a completely different page. So I
Yeah.
will talk to Mardine, because she's also
Or
a
just
Mac
send it
person.
to me and we'll send it to NotchNet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who
I had an
handles
issue
our
last week
website.
with Notch.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
send it to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah.
get into my email for 3
Yeah.
days.
When it came up as NotchNet, and again, it looked different,
Yeah, it's
but
a
it
new
only
update.
gave me like 5 new emails and about a dozen old emails, including
Right.
all the way back to Paul Branscombe, and I thought, where's everything else?
Yeah,
So
well.
there's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they just
Surprise,
updated their
surprise.
server, so our emails was down. for a
Okay,
little
all
while.
right, thank you. Don't mean to derail.
All right. Martine put a publication from the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture on the website about Japanese knotweed, and one of the methods for landowners how to rectify this issue. Also, we just put up the news release about the 2018 property tax reval. This is our reval year, so there might be some folks call in and assessing properties. Fire department had 29 calls, 20 medical emergencies, 5 fire rescue calls, 4 motor vehicles. They continued training in March. There was a new online training platform. There's some training about the assessment and management of musculoskeletal.
Musculoskeletal. Musculoskeletal.
Muscles and skeleton.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I didn't write
Yes.
that.
Muscles and bones.
Muscles. So the departments, they also attended outside training for resource management and training on obstetric emergencies, the fire warden.
That's scary.
Yeah. They had the annual forestry training. Truck checks were done and logged. The new truck, this is the new engine that's supposed to be delivered. This is what was passed last year as a warrant article. They're hoping to receive that sometime in May or June.
We need a celebration to roll that one out.
Need a ribbon cutting for that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It was a hard-fought battle.
They still haven't received the ballistic vest helmets that was purchased through the grant that we we approved that a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Chief's doing life safety cold inspections. Their reports were, the NFIRS reports were sent to State Fire Marshal's office, and the deputy completed quality assurance reviews of TEMSIS reports for medical instance.
Great.
Yep.
Project list.
All right. The survey was done for the TAP grant. So I talked to Mike from KV Partners. He hopes to be coming next meeting. To have a conceptual plan.
Excellent.
So we'll start the public hearings and
Wonderful.
all that stuff about that project.
Wonderful.
Thompson Street project, I notified NHDES that the vote failed and we won't be moving forward with the funding for that project.
We do need to look at any kind of piecemeal approach to that. There's some areas of Thompson Street in particular and Smith Hill that are going to need some kind of remediation at some point. And now that we, passed it, it doesn't matter that no doesn't mean no in this case because we have an alternative. That's something we need to take a serious look at.
At the last meeting for which I chaired, we discussed this with Craig Moore, Director Craig Moore. He said that Thompson Street would be a great place to try out that new piece of equipment. he's acquired.
I'm open for anything. Okay, thank you.
The LW Packard mill site project, we
know
just had a
that.
presentation on. The New Hampshire Land and Community Heritage Investment Program, this is the LCHIP grant. We sent out the RFP to 3 engineer firms. Fortunately, 2 dropped out. I sent the board copies from Christopher Williams Architect that if you're ready to move forward with it tonight, we can. If not, we can put it
Well,
on
I
the
think
next agenda.
given that we have one choice, we should make a motion to move forward. So I will entertain a motion to move forward with the one architect who is still in, what is it, Mitchell? No, it is Williams, sorry, Williams, to move forward with Williams Architect for the L-chip.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I would like to see, personally, a subcommittee formed around this L-chip. I think we need to ensure that we have input from the Historical Society, from the Heritage Commission, and, at the very least, those 2 groups, as well as the Selectboard, to kind of be involved in this process. So I would I'll entertain a motion to develop such subcommittee and ask Heritage and Historical to each contribute a member and appoint a member from the board. And obviously, Charlie, you're going to be overseeing
Well, I
a lot of
have
it, so.
been, all along, I've kept the Heritage Commission
Yeah,
involved
oh,
on
right,
this.
but,
Yeah,
but I'd
every
like
step
to
of the
see
way.
some
Right.
historical input
Yeah.
as well, in case some is needed, and certainly have a select board member as part of it, just to, make sure that we know what's going on.
I'll volunteer to do it for the BOS.
Okay,
I'm already on it,
you're already on it.
on here.
Oh, well, you're on
Heritage.
Heritage, okay.
Yeah.
So could we have a motion to appoint a specific individual from Historical Society? And
David's on Heritage.
David's
on
also on
Heritage.
Heritage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's on Heritage.
Yeah.
all right. No, we
Yeah.
don't. So
No, no, I
I
know.
would request that we have a volunteer, and maybe David is a good one if he's on both committees too, that we just make sure that we get input from the appropriate people as we move forward. I don't think we're at any kind of design phase at this point, but, it's certainly important to keep in mind our heritage and our history as we look at the other issues with the building. So, okay. Sorry, Charlie.
It's all right. Yeah, so I'll notify
Yeah.
Williams about the.
Okay, great.
The town parcel audit, GIS, Geographic Information System, that's on
That's
the
on the
agenda
agenda,
for discussion
okay.
later tonight. Basically, I had a meeting with them, with CI Technology about the contract,
Mm-hmm.
and when to start, et cetera, but I can speak more to that when we get to that on the agenda.
Okay.
Town personnel policy, that's almost ready to reconvene. I've been reviewing, a lot was forwarded to me. I'll ease everyone's concerns on that. That is not major reconstruction to the personnel policy. It's more of updating our current personnel policy with up-to-date legal language, more than it is anything else.
Okay, well, we should review it as a board as well, shouldn't we?
Oh, yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Great.
Yeah. But I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
everyone knew this isn't like, it's not like a major overhaul or anything
Okay.
like that. Yeah. Town office building maintenance, he was hoping to start last week, but the weather.
The key word is ready in spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen spring yet.
Yeah, spring ends technically, what, in June?
Yeah.
We got a little time.
This is gonna be another one of those this year
Right.
throughout summer.
Yeah, probably.
Now, this one, in relation to the L-chip, when I talked, Libby came through, last week, I asked him about the cracks in the building.
Yeah.
As you guys pointed out,
Yeah.
that there's some
Yeah.
cracks.
keystone.
And, yeah, what his thoughts are about that. He said, I could patch it up, but the problem is the building's, it's the structural,
shifted.
it's a structural
Yeah.
issue more
Yeah,
than
sure
it
it
is
is.
anything with the crack. That
And
the
hopefully
building
we'll find out more
Yeah.
about that for the L-chip.
just turning over time. And I said,
Yeah.
well, good thing we're doing a structural engineer study.
Definitely.
And that will come back with something.
So, okay.
Because one of those cracks is right over my office, and I
Uh-huh.
don't need that.
We won't let you fall between the
Right.
cracks, Charlie.
Yeah,
Oh,
good one.
good
Yeah,
one.
thanks,
Harold.
Harold.
And that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, for now.
All right. Great, thank you.
Sorry. The mango one I'll talk about.
Yeah, that's on the
Yeah.
agenda.
in a minute.
Okay, at some point, we'll need to address the speed bump on Levitt Hill as we get closer to the season. Okay, Lakes Region Planning Commission Transportation Advisory Committee, David Toth. Would you like to make a statement or comments or some such thing?
Yeah, the Lakes Region Planning Council wants to get input from all of the select boards that are involved with Lakes Region Planning on how they feel about asking for funding for roads.
Like Highland Street?
Well, most of this has to do with state roads.
First half mile, yeah.
And Highland Street would be one of those. What happened was that the legislature went out to the RPCs and asked them for input. Our executive council decided not to provide any input because they didn't feel they were empowered to do so. And when we went to the last meeting with the commission, several of us on the commission are also on the TAC, and we said we really need to weigh in on this issue because we have serious problems in our entire region with state road repairs. And so that was passed down to the TAC Committee, the Transportation Committee, and the TAC put this information sheet together about the various ways that the state raises money for roads. We have, just to briefly review it, we have gasoline taxes, both federal and state gasoline taxes. We have tolls on 93, and we also have the state aid highway program. But basically the two main ways that we have funded roads in the past are through the gasoline taxes. The problem with the gasoline taxes is cars are getting much better gas mileage, and so revenues from those taxes have gone down, and the state and federal government have not raised the gasoline taxes to make up for those shortfalls. The legislature has been reluctant to raise tolls on 93. They did raise tolls on 93 in 2014 to pay for the road work that's being done in the southern part of the state.
So what do they want from us?
Well, they want to know whether the select boards have any opinions on whether we should raise these taxes or not. We're impacted on Highland Street because the legislature cut the state aid to highways. And so they were going to come in, they were going to pay 80% of the cost of redoing Highland Street. Water and sewer was going to go in on the project, and basically it was our way of really solving our road reconstruction problems in town. Now that's been cut. LRPC is concerned that most of these projects, like the Highland Street, where the state owns the road and is returning it to the towns, most of those projects were in the Lakes region. And so the other regions voted against that, and that directly impacts us. We can't repair the road because the state owns it. And yet we provide all the maintenance on that road. So that's a problem. Our famous intersection.
Not a fatality yet.
We're waiting for a volunteer.
Well, we actually have two areas in town
two intersections that are bad.
Are dangerous. But we can't even. I wouldn't even recommend that we would go into the 10-year plan on either one of those because there are so many other problem areas that are much more serious in our region. And even if we did go in, it would be 10 years before any action was taken on that.
Both of those intersections are also state-owned. That would be hard for you to intercede with that, because the end of 132, or what we call South Main Street, that's state-owned, and Winona Road is a state road.
Well, that's what the 10-year plan is.
The 10-year plan is a state. It's a state project. The LRPC, the RPCs submit requests for state projects to fix those roads. Highland Street will probably have to go into the 10-year plan, which means another 10 years, or 12 or 15 years before the state comes in and takes care of that problem. So
you're asking us to express an opinion. Or opinions.
Or not. Ideas.
Or not.
Well,
or any ideas.
I would suggest that we think about it and discuss it at some point, and if we come up with some thoughts, we'd certainly discuss it and share it.
Yeah,
Yes,
next-
Can I
Charlie?
ask you a question?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. How is LRPC's relationship with the District 3, for DOT?
Very good,
Is it?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Because that's an avenue we could possibly go
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Highland Street.
yeah.
So,
That's
the
what
state. Go
That's what
ahead.
we did initially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they came out, and there was the state aid to highway program. They were going to do it in 2020. We were supposed to start engineering this year, and then they canceled the program. Tilton, I believe, was already in process of redoing, doing their work at it, and it was cut, and so now there are some legal issues there, so.
All right, one thing I didn't see in here, David, I don't know if they considered, when you said the efficiency of vehicles is increasing, and that's, obviously less fuel. I drove commercial truck for 10 years or so, both for government and private sector, and one thing I don't see in here is weight class increases. Like when you go to register a vehicle, your vehicle may get more efficient, but it's always going to stay the same.
And that's,
I drove class
Right.
8, or it's now group 8 to group 16, which is your heavier stuff, and that is really where you can make up for it. It's not, Joe Time Clock who's trying to feed his kids. It's someone who's an entrepreneur that, these are $100,000 pieces of equipment that $10 here, $15 there won't affect it so much.
that was one of the suggestions that was raised on the TAC, along with increasing the inspections, weight inspections for trucks and so forth. So there are other alternatives other than the ones here. These just happen to be the major ones. The legislature really has not taken much action in this area. Even the last one, the Municipal and Transportation Improvement Fund, we in town affectionately call the Patsy Tax.
Yes, yes.
This is just adding $5 to the registration.
I know, it's failed year after year
So
after year.
that we could have some extra money to fix roads or to fix sidewalks or whatever. The town has rejected it several times. Well, there was a bill in the Senate to raise that up to $10.
You mean a state
And it
issue?
was rejected.
Yeah, okay.
And that's just sorry, not to interrupt, that's the option to
That's
bring it to.
the-
Yeah,
That's just to
okay.
give the towns the
Yeah.
option to
Oh,
say,
okay.
hey, 5's the max, but you can raise it to
Yeah.
10 or
Okay.
750 if you want. And they voted it down.
Uh-huh.
And a number of the towns in our region have made use of this.
Yeah.
And they raise, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, depending on the size of the town.
Yeah.
And they supplement their road budget.
Okay.
So,
All right, well, we will all give it some thought, I would assume, and I'm sure there'll be suggestions
The
kicked about.
next TAC meeting is the first
Okay.
Wednesday of May.
Okay. You might as well stay standing because you're next on the agenda as well, for water and sewer.
Put your other hat on.
Yeah.
We are requesting to cut down the trees next to our 6 Collins Street building. The trees between the edge of the building and the utility pole there, because we want to expand our parking lot. And some of those trees create a problem for us. The leaves from those trees get on the roof and clog our gutters. We are, once our office is complete, we will be hosting more town meetings in that office than we now have.
How many will be able to come to a meeting in that new space?
I would guess, 10 to 15, so there
Okay.
would be smaller meetings, and it will
Yeah.
be, equipped with projection and...
Yeah.
Still a vast improvement though, right?
Yes.
It's a vast improvement over what you'd had in years past. You guys have come in full circle on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
completely.
So, we want to get the trees cut. We're going to be, fixing that parking area and paving it when we pave when we do the septic receiving station later this year, so.
Okay.
Now, is that, maybe I may be miscalculating, is that the side opposite of the test well that we had when we had the storage tanks out there? I remember we have on our record that we have testing done there where there used to be some tanks
I think
above
it's the
ground.
opposite
It's
side.
the-
Looking at the building, it's to the left.
Right,
Yeah.
so it would be in between your access point to the building and the new, I guess you'd call it sand shed?
Yeah,
Is that, okay, so it's
Yeah.
opposite side?
Yeah.
So there's no
Yeah.
concerns with
Utility
that?
pole there.
Yep.
So it's a fairly small
Yeah.
area. I had, just in case you're interested in what it looks like,
Is this something you'd have utility partners do, or would you contract this out?
utility partners will do this one, yeah, it's just this area.
Oh, yeah, it's nominal.
Yeah, it's just a fairly small area.
okay, a motion to approve the removal of the trees to expand parking at Water and Sewer?
I'll make said motion.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, David. Ashland 150th, Jane.
First of all, I want to give you an official invitation to the Board of Selectmen to the parade.
Okay, thank you.
I also sent one to the town of Holderness.
Okay,
job, save it,
I
Stan.
will read it and pass it along.
You don't have to read the whole thing.
No, do you want me, I can read it out loud. Should read it out loud. Ashland 150th Celebration Committee would be honored to have you join our parade. Lineup will be at noon behind the Ashland Fire Station on Mill Street. The parade will kick off at 2 p.m. and proceed down Main Street with a reviewing and announcing stand at the center of town by the town library and end at the L.W. Packard Ball Field. Local PVTV will be filming, and we hope to have copies of the broadcast available for sale at a later date. By participating in the parade, each entrant specifically consents to being photographed and/or videotaped for the benefit of the committee. The committee in the town of Ashland is not liable for injury or damage to any property, public or private, caused by or to any entry. A day of family events and entertainment is planned at the ball field after the parade, ending in fireworks at dusk. Confirmation of your intention to attend would be appreciated, as well as any information for announcing purposes. All lineup members will be available at the fire station by 11 a.m. on the day of the parade. Please email. Has this been reviewed by legal by any chance? You have some legal
No, what I did was
statements in there.
I went to a number of different towns in the state, and
Okay.
that's been repetitive in all their forms when they set up for parades.
Okay.
Is that something we should have legal look at?
It wouldn't hurt. I would run this by.
Yeah.
Yeah, just when you're talking about rights and everything, I
Yeah,
would
my
feel
con-
more comfortable having our lawyer look
Yeah.
at.
That was my only concern, because
Yeah.
you stayed within 2 or 3 sentences there, you know, that you're waiving your right, but then you talk about a family event. Well, anytime you're talking about releasing the rights to photographs of your children, you have an issue there.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go down that road.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely want that reviewed by legal, but anyway, thank you, Jane. We'll,
I mean, you want us to march in a,
I guess now, well, I have sent that out.
I still think we need
I
it.
think you've already sent it out.
Right, I didn't know I needed to, I mean, it's something all the towns have used. Mostly what it is, it's like if we're gonna be selling DVDs
Yeah,
afterwards,
yeah.
that we have permission to sell those of the parade.
But like Carol said, when it involves children, they don't have the right to waive their personally
Bingo.
themselves. Yes, and
Yeah, it's become a much more sensitive.
If you ever
Yes.
go to, I'll give you an example. One of my other hats is I do giant organic bubbles, and whenever I go to a party, I get hired out to go to parties. And when I have someone who wants to do the photography, I say, listen, you don't take any pictures of the children unless you have
Right.
expressed consent.
Permission,
from their
right, yeah.
parents.
yeah.
Well, that's
Because
why
you
we
can find
exposed
yourself
it
in a
there,
court of
so they
law.
know.
Yeah, it needs
But
to
the
be
children can't
ensured
do
that
that.
people understand
Right,
that.
I assume the adults.
Yeah.
Personally,
It's on the
I-
registration
I-
site.
Yeah, I have a problem
Right.
with that. I don't want to give up my personal rights.
So-
I want to just be able to enjoy the,
But it's just so that when you're marching with parade, I mean, for me to have to go back to everybody and get consent to
Right.
sell DVDs.
Yeah.
Well,
You have a lawman with an opinion.
Yes, can we let
I'll get legal to
Chief
look at
Randall,
it.
yeah,
No
have
problem.
legal look at it, just so that we're
So
comfortable.
I'm just trying to figure out, what do we do on the 4th of July? Because there's plenty of people out
I
there.
was just gonna say,
Well,
Well, this is
This is a
PVTV,
town
I think
entity.
that's the difference.
they,
I don't mind, you know,
They did it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's the 150th celebration of the town, it's bigger than all of us in this
Yeah.
town.
Again,
People are out there in the audience watching, you don't
Yeah.
go and
Just-
get, I mean, it's
No,
it's
no,
a
no, 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 no.
newspaper.
Audience.
It
It's a
seems like
newspaper
this
law, unless
150th
there's
thing is rowing against
handicap.
the tide, and I don't know why.
it just doesn't hurt to have
I
it.
didn't realize, I just assumed this is
Yeah.
what other towns use.
And it's probably just fine. I just think for our purposes, just have them look at it and say, yeah, it's
Which section
fine.
is it mostly about, the fact about being recorded, or?
Let me have that
We'll
again.
let legal.
No, I think that's
Yeah.
fine.
Let the
It's
attorney
probably
review it.
fine. I'm not really
guess.
concerned about it, but because it has language in there about rights, I just don't
Well, and the
want
other
to
thing
make
I
sure
wanted
we
to make
look
sure,
at
a lot of times I saw that they did put on that people understood that if you fall off your float or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
or something falls off a float and hurts enough,
Yeah.
that the town's not responsible
Yeah.
or the
No,
community.
we've
The
done
person
that.
driving the vehicle is.
We've done that 1,000 times with the 4th of July. I'm not concerned about that at all.
Well, no one has the right either to tell somebody they can't videotape or photograph
No,
a
that's right.
public event.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No one has that
Yeah.
right.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, so I shouldn't try to videotape?
No,
No, no.
go right
You're
ahead.
confusing me.
Well, no, I would say wait till
I'm trying to just have it
I mean,
videotaped, so
someone
we can...
can't tell you you can't, or anybody can't tape or take a picture. They can. Anybody can.
It just needs to be
It's a
public
public event.
knowledge that it is
Right.
being videotaped by somebody,
Which
it'll be
is
shown
why
on
I'm
public
exposing
TV.
it.
Yeah, exactly,
The
and
way
that's what the
I
letter's for.
understood it, you wanted to have the rights to your videotape so you could make a DVD for sale at a later date.
Correct.
And I don't know how that can possibly be managed, because you'll have people all along the parade route with cell phones taking pictures, and you can't manage those people. I wouldn't want to give up my...
I'm only going to be
What
putting
do you
on the
mean,
DVD
manager?
what is available to us through
It's just what,
it's
the
just
data
what
that
she
they
has.
collect. They're not gonna own every image.
No,
What
no,
do you
no,
mean,
but-
manage people?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah, well,
Manage people.
Other people along the parade route probably will be taking pictures too.
and that's fine,
Yeah.
That
So
everyone
is
has the
this-
right to do that.
Everybody has a right to do that,
Right.
but they're asking for exclusive rights for PB Cam to use your image, so they could put it on a
I think there's some
DVD.
If you're
confusion.
in the parade.
Yeah, I
If
think,
you're in the parade and go by the reviewing
Yeah.
stand and they're videotaping,
Yeah.
I just want people to be aware that they're being videotaped.
That's right.
And
That's
that
all.
we may put this on a DVD
That's all you
that
need.
says 150th parade.
yeah,
And
it's
that was
fine.
my concern.
I think Kathleen was just a little bit
That's
uncomfortable
fine.
with the language, but you cannot prevent, nor would you, anybody else from videotaping it.
Right.
You don't
No,
own,
no,
you
no,
don't own the
I-
image, you own what you did.
Right,
Okay.
anybody can videotape all they want.
Absolutely.
I just want them to know that we're gonna have.
But your
a
specific
reviewing
filming
stand.
is, your property, but anybody can film anything. So we just want to make
Correct.
sure that we understand the language.
All right,
Okay,
okay.
that's all right.
Sorry.
No, that's okay,
I
Jane.
didn't realize every letter I sent out I should bring in to be reviewed. I mean, I don't have time is my problem. I've done less
I
than 4
understand, you're
months.
stretched pretty thin, as we all are.
All right, I did go to the last meeting of the Heritage Commission and got more insight into Squamstock. It is evidently, it's not going to involve any financial or other fundraising of local businesses, which was a concern that we had as well as the 4th of July committee, because again, we're down to the next 3 months are going to be tough for
Yep.
both organizations.
Yep.
And it's not going to be involving the sale of souvenirs that will be competing with us either. So we have no objection, as it was passed at their last meeting,
Okay.
that it's going to be on July 1st at the Holderness Science
Okay.
Center.
I think we're going to get more of an update from Heritage at a future meeting, but that's good to hear, Jane, thank
Yeah.
you.
And then also, we were having an issue with, we had originally proposed a community barbecue, and we weren't getting a lot of volunteers. We were going to try and get all the different organizations involved. So then we decided instead that we were going to open up to all the organizations that they could come and have their own concession stand down there, whether for their own purpose or whatever they wanted. The Ashland Community Church has offered to do a cookout,
Okay.
and all their proceeds will be donated back to the 150th.
Okay.
We
Is this at
have-
the ball field?
This is the day of the day in the park
Okay,
after the parade
okay.
on July 28th.
Yep.
We've met with the Ashland Women's Club, the Community Church, the Ashland Firefighters Association, the Friends of the Library, the Girl Scouts, Water and Sewer, Electric Commissioners, and the Legion Auxiliary. I'm going to the Garden Club meeting next week, and then the Historical Society meets next Tuesday.
So basically, you're offering all those groups, they can do anything?
I have done letters to all these groups
Okay.
all along.
Great.
Offering them
Yep.
to, to be involved.
Okay.
And now I'm just kind of meeting individually and showing them what the breakdown is and suggesting areas where, if they wanted to do something. I'd be
Okay,
involved.
great,
Have
thank
you,
you.
have you outreach to the Upper Intervale Grange in Plymouth? Because if you go back through the lineage of the town, before, we used to have in Ashland in the 1870s to, I think, 1904, there used to be the Grange Fair was down in that vicinity. And then when it moved to the fairgrounds in Plymouth, where they had the fair up there, that Grange is now on Route 3, just north of River Road in Plymouth. And that is loosely tied to Ashland, but that is what became of the Grange that was in town. So they may have some people
Do you
that
know
want.
how I should contact them at all? Or is
I
there
don't
a
have the
phone
contact. Last time I was involved with them was maybe 6 or 7 years ago. But they outreach quite far. You know, the Huckins family is greatly involved
If
in
I
that.
can find an address to send
Stanley
something, I
Huckins is a
will.
member.
Okay.
You know, to not give out
I
the
mean,
whole
I've been-
list, but Stanley Huckins on Bridgewater Hill Road. I think it's Stanley Huckins Senior.
Okay. I have put it in the paper too, and I'm gonna start putting it in more. We have posted on, I gave to Mardine, she posted the parade registration, which I'll amend if you find the attorney thinks I need to.
Yeah.
I posted the parade rules, which mostly are the ones required by the RSAs, that the licensed vehicles must be registered and inspected, the drivers must be licensed, then any children have to be within reach of an adult, and all those parameters, but that's also, rather than distribute that, it's
Yeah.
on the site,
Yeah.
and all of our registration form states that they understand by
Yeah.
registering for the
Yeah.
parade, that they accept that they have read those rules.
Okay,
And then also we have posted the category of all the different awards that are going to be distributed for walkers and floats and that type of thing for the parade.
do you have a rough idea of, or a commitment thus far about people, about groups in the parade? Just curious.
Groups in the parade?
Yeah,
I have all the ones that I originally,
the ones that, bands and stuff, but
Yeah.
anybody else in town, have you gotten any?
no,
Comments,
no,
okay.
I
Okay,
just
just
posted
curious.
the parade information,
Okay,
so,
all
yeah.
right.
And then and I've been working with, and I'm hoping in the final stages of doing a postmark with the Ashland Post Office.
Oh,
And they will have a representative at the Day in the Park on Saturday the 28th to do the postmarking.
how does that work? I'm curious.
They hand stamp
It's
it.
a long process, yeah.
So if you want to mail a letter that day, they hand stamp it?
Right.
Ah,
We're
okay.
gonna
They used to do long ago.
Okay, okay.
We're actually gonna get some custom-made stamps.
Yeah.
A couple of these similar to the banners that we're doing.
Yeah.
And then we'll have them already on envelopes and
Okay.
and they will stamp them
Oh,
there.
interesting. I never heard of such a thing.
Yeah,
Very
cool. Okay.
right now we're aiming for the 20th, they're definitely gonna do the 28th.
Okay.
We're looking into, they might be able to have it available for a couple days until the next week.
Okay,
So if anybody doesn't get a chance to do it on that day.
okay.
But again, we can charge anything we want for this.
Yeah.
They do it free of charge, there's no charge.
For instance, Bethlehem, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
You can-
Oh, right, for
you can-
Christmas
Christmas,
letters to
yeah.
Santa. Okay,
Yes,
got
right.
it. All
But
right.
that's just through their normal
Yeah,
postmark.
yeah,
This is a special
okay.
one that have our logo on it.
Yeah, okay,
So, and the
cool.
date. And the only other thing, which I didn't hear on your project list, but Craig and I are going to try and meet at Riverwalk as soon as the weather permits
Ah,
with Mark
yes.
Lieber.
Okay,
Because when we met last fall, we were walking through there's a lot of old lilac bushes in there.
oh,
And some other that, we want to have
tangled in
them
the
tell us.
knotweed or?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, we know there's a lot of stuff that has
Yeah,
to come out, but
yeah.
Craig's just nervous about going in and
We
mowing
had,
it all
we, had
down.
this,
Yeah,
we had
absolutely.
this meeting, was it last fall,
Yes.
you and I went down there with Susan McLeod and Tim Paquette?
That's right.
We walked that and identified the species we'd like to
Yeah.
save and what they were.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I don't know if Greg has that, then as to what
He
ones.
should speak to his predecessor.
We
Okay,
can
is that
walk
the
through
thing
with
she
them.
found?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have
There's
the
a-
old
Susan has
lilacs
a
and
map.
things
You
we
have the
should
map,
save?
Susan?
Susan has a map.
Oh, all right, well, maybe you could give that to Craig, that would be great. That would be awesome. That's all I have.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions?
The Riverwalk is tied in with that same grant
Yeah.
as the playground, so
Yeah.
it was probably another phone call to say, this is what we
Something you're
had.
putting in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to make sure it fits whatever, well, I wrote it down because, I think I can find it now. Compliance and stewardship. Stewardship, I understand. Compliance sounds like there's some parameters involved and, you need to talk to someone before you do anything. That's how I understand it.
Yeah.
As far as cleaning out trees?
Yes, because that was
That's
done by a
out of my
federal,
parameter.
it was a federal grant. And when Jim Gleich left the
Right.
town, he had just had verbal exchanges with this inspector, and there was no documentation, so nobody was quite sure what was discussed. And the little bit of information we did find, and we had it through the Conservation Commission, that this was done by a federal grant, and there were certain parameters that had to be...
As to what trees you can take
No,
out?
no. How it was
How
going
it's
to be
maintained.
managed to maintain.
That's out of my...
It's out of your bailiwick.
And that was
it
part
was
of-
just sort of overgrown.
Oh, okay.
And that was the issue.
Yeah.
Why wasn't this maintained? And nobody had an answer.
Some of us didn't
because
even know there was a river
most of
walk.
us did not even realize that this was supposed to be a feature
Yeah.
to be maintained.
Is there
So-
any other questions for the 150th?
Yes, I do, I got a couple. You and I talked before about having a banner on Main Street.
Yes.
And you said we needed to contact somebody in the state in order to do
If
that.
it goes across the road, I
To
think,
go across the road.
is
Because
that...
it's a state road.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
of height
so-
restrictions.
Right, so I was wondering if,
We're gonna have
somebody
banners
raised the
all along
money.
Main Street and
Yeah.
all those poles. Why would we need
You
a
don't
banner
think, you
over
don't,
the road?
okay.
Yeah.
was
I don't know,
just
it's
asking.
up to you, but I just think it might be overkill.
It
Okay.
could be a
And it could
logistical
be-
nightmare
yeah,
too.
yeah.
To try to get
Oh,
it
yeah,
hung
'cause
hung
it's
up
truck.
high enough so that the big
Because it's
trucks
truck-
can
the
go
tractor
under it.
trailers,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
I know what you're talking about. It would be really cool.
Yeah, it would.
It would be hard to get it high enough.
But like anything else, things we could do 50 years ago.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we used to have a welcome to Ashland sign that went right over
Oh,
Main
yeah,
Street.
The arch.
There's all
Yeah.
sorts of liabilities
Yeah.
and other
Yeah.
issues involved now that the town has to be very cognizant of.
How
Well, the
is
other
the
thing with
banners,
the
oh,
banners,
sorry, yeah, how's it going?
Do we have I understood that you asked the electric company
Yes,
to hang
and
the
all
banners
set.
in?
Oh, wonderful,
We are.
excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
How are the
All
sales
right,
going?
Really good, we're doing really well. And
Wonderful.
I had an issue because I could not find a list of how many actually were put up anywhere. Nobody had one.
Yeah.
So I ended up,
Going around and writing
well, I was
down?
gonna do that, but then Steve Foley offered to do it for me, and he did get me a full count, and he
Oh.
checked all the brackets for me, so I know how many
Excellent.
brackets are missing.
Wonderful,
So,
Nice.
yeah, so I'm excited about that.
Okay.
So hopefully, as soon as it warms up, we can get them up.
Great.
Probably
Any
around the
day
1st of
now,
May.
any day now.
Yeah.
In terms of other fundraising, how's that going? Your sales of
The next one
license
we're
plate?
starting is we're doing a commemorative book,
Okay.
which I've met with Venture Print, and
Okay.
I have a girl, my niece actually, who's gonna do all my formatting for free, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And that is going to be, we wanna call it, it's gonna be like all the people in town. I'm gonna go around and take pictures of like the Board of Selectmen, the Water Department, the Sewer Department, the Fire Department.
Give me a day's notice at least.
But I want it to be, and then we're gonna open it up to
No, that's nice.
people
Yeah,
past and present.
Yeah, no.
Because then 25 years from now, they're going, oh, look who's on the Board of Selectmen, because you always see the ones of the fire department.
Right,
So-
right.
No, that's
Don't worry, we'll
nice.
all be infamous enough.
Yeah. So this
nice.
also will have the ability for people to put their ads in, which again is another big seller, looking down the road when you look back at people's ads that
Yeah.
they had in there 25
Yeah.
years ago. And it will have pages where you can, for $10, buy a line that says, the Sharps family wishes the town well, or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
We'll
So,
do that.
No pressure, Lee.
then the other thing we wanted to do
We'll
too
do a
is we'll have it
regular
so
ad.
you can put pictures in, like, we haven't set the prices yet, we're still working on the final cost of the book, but that you can put in a picture of your family, for instance, in there, and that type of thing. So, or somebody that, like, I'll probably put a picture of my dad, and that type of thing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
How are we gonna know how to do that?
I'll be starting to publish, I'm just starting to meet with the printer, and then it'll be,
No, I mean,
PDF
asking
or
people,
JPEGs.
how are they?
The announcement to go out that we
Yeah.
can submit stuff.
Yeah,
Say that,
how are people gonna know how to do that, to submit? Like, are you sending letters out to businesses?
I will be, yes, I'll be
Oh,
doing, like
okay.
I did for the banners. I'll
Yes.
be doing it to all the, and I'm gonna do out-of-town businesses
Nice.
for this as well.
Okay.
Not just Ashland businesses for the
Yeah,
book.
good idea.
Well, there should be an announcement on the website too, for
Yes.
if
everything I
individuals
put on the
want to,
website.
I think that was where Lee was coming
Yes.
from.
Yeah,
The Sharps
definitely.
family wants to contribute.
Yes, we do, we wanna ask you.
Yeah, so that's always, I put on there, and I
Okay.
also put in the paper and keep, every 2 weeks I've been putting something in the paper.
Great,
Okay,
okay.
cool.
You'll keep us informed.
As far as buying license plates and the other memorabilia, where can people go right now?
It's still at Fran Ceramics and Elaine Hughes Real Estate.
Elaine Hughes.
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
exactly.
Very good.
And again, all the prices and everything are on our website. You can go there and it shows you
Okay.
everything.
Great.
Very nice.
And
Okay.
supplies are getting low though.
Good. I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear
no,
that.
it's a good
That's
sign.
good.
Yes, I noticed your license plate.
Yes, we have a
It's
150
beautiful.
license plate. I love it. Okay. Thank you, Jane.
Anybody else? All set? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Mango Security.
Mango Security, that's me. Two things from Mango Security. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Ooh, you heard me.
Yeah. But I asked them initially, well, Tony and I have been working on the partially with the cameras, which we'll get to in a minute, but the smoke detectors is from last year. And,
Yeah.
we had this last year and we decided for fiscal reasons to sort of postpone it
Yeah.
till this year after I told Mango after the budget passes, et cetera, et cetera.
And this is now in the budget, I'm assuming, the 13,000.
This I would say capital reserves.
Oh, okay.
Smoke detectors.
You had
So I can give you a
13,450.
rundown of the financial aspect for analysis
Before you
on
get too
finance.
far,
Yeah.
should we wait till the L-chip is done? If we go forward with this and then we find out
I don't think it's
something-
connected to the L-chip. I mean, this is just security. This will have nothing to do with the structural soundness of the
Separate.
building or ADA compliance. I mean, I am assuming, Susan, would you like to comment on that? Do you see this as any relation to L-chip at this point?
I mean,
Yes,
I will
no?
comment.
I don't think she heard you.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
well, the way I look at it is they put it in, they can take it out.
Absolutely.
Well-
It's not like we're changing a window or
No, no,
anything.
no,
It's
but
it's
it's-
just a smoke detector.
since I wasn't on the board,
Yeah.
I don't, I see the raw price, how much is this is for equipment, how much is it for labor?
Yeah.
I don't know if you had that broke down, that was broken down for you a year ago, so.
Well, it
if we pay-
was.
If we pay for all this labor and for some reason, something's pointed out that
Right.
may not be, I don't even know the right
Yeah.
word. There's some sort of, not even interference, that
Well, I can tell you this, we've already put about
Yeah.
$13,000 into some equipment that just sits there and it's almost basically useless.
which I
Because
did not know until
they're
I went to the
basically-
town office last week.
Well, that's
Yeah.
because we
No idea.
decided to split up
I
the
didn't say, I shouldn't
costs,
say
so.
useless, it's not useless,
Yeah.
but this is the second
This
part
is-
to
yeah.
make that functionable. Right now, last year they installed strobes, they did in the wall mount and the pulleys. If there's a fire in the building, you just pull it and people would know, but the fire department has no way of knowing.
Right. This is a monitored.
I guess
Yeah.
the one way that this would pertain to the L-chip is it would protect any investment put into that property.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Exactly.
And also, conversely, think of this, we just had that damage to the old jail there. If we put a whole bunch of money into that building and someone wants to back their
Yeah.
jacked up pickup into the side of our building and we don't know who did it because we
Right.
don't have a video camera there, I mean,
Yeah.
my opinion is it's
So-
money well
Well,
spent.
this
From-
is the first time I had seen this, and yes,
Yeah.
I was quite astounded by the cost.
Yeah.
Right.
And, yeah.
The
it
other
took me-
thing,
it-
we'll
It
see-
took me aback.
The other thing I guess I would say is the clerk's supposed to have this responsibility is retention of records by law.
Yeah.
And they're not being completely protected.
That's for sure.
I
Well-
did a brief financial analysis if
Okay.
you want. I can give you that now and maybe that will ease the concerns of the high cost. We have 46,851 in capital reserve this year. There was, the warrant article was approved for another 25,000. That won't be submitted until December by law. We have to send that check to the trustees of the trust funds. I believe it's December 15th. So that brings us up to 71,851. We have 13,836 in the building line maintenance. That leaves 85,687. We have to save $10,000 for the L-chip study per the warrant article. That leaves about 75,687.
I don't think we have any choice. We've jumped on the horse and we need to ride it. I mean, the
Right.
building is too valuable. It's a lot of money, but.
This is my first experience.
I understand.
Having to vote for something
I
of this
understand.
magnitude, and it's like,
Hold on.
wow.
The other ones are
Yeah,
bigger.
so, yes, it's a learning
It
experience for
is,
me.
it is.
Well, if we're gonna put further investment into this building, we should protect it. from
Yeah.
day
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Oh, no, I
Absolutely.
think we
Yeah.
all know.
Absolutely.
Just
I was
grit your teeth and
yes,
take a deep
yes,
breath.
I was horrified that
I know.
it wasn't protected.
Well, it was
As a-
horrifying, and the
yes.
fact is, we made a commitment last year to start this process. So I would entertain a motion to approve the proposal from Mango Security in the amount of $13,165 for the installation of smoke and heat detectors at the town office building. Yes, you
And-
want to say something else?
Yes.
And?
Yeah, from
You were
the
thinking the
capital
same
reserve
thing.
fund.
Oh,
Yeah.
and take the money from the capital
Yeah.
reserve fund, okay.
Now, conversely, did you want to add in the cameras as well in that motion?
That's,
or
I
just
think
two
that's a separate thing.
That's separate.
Separate.
Let's
Okay.
discuss this first.
Yeah.
So I would entertain such motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the Mango security proposal in the amount of $13,165 for the installation of smoke and heat detectors for the town office building, monies to be taken from capital reserve? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, three.
Oh,
All right, now let's talk
Sorry.
about cameras.
oh, maybe we'll get easy after a while. I don't know.
It's just money, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
No,
money.
the town gave,
The town, we got millions.
they
it's
gave
not
it to
a
take care of the building, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so the next one we have with Mango is for security cameras at the town office building and the Ashland Police Department. You wanna go first? Go ahead.
Sure, Joe.
Go.
We need the upgrade at the police department. All the cameras that we have are outdated. The system's antiquated. We're required now, from the county attorney's office, when we were doing interviews, to have better pictures of people's faces. Right now, yeah, you can see that we're interviewing somebody, but they're not able to look at the people's face when it happens.
Okay.
So, they need to be upgraded. There's cameras that were in the PD before I showed up. Okay, a couple of the monitors were monitors that we scalped from old computers that were being ditched to use to try to save money, so that there would be one in the admin office and one in the booking room, so that when somebody's in there working, they have full view of all the different areas that have cameras at the PD.
Yep.
It's just time to change it.
Yep.
I've been there 9 years now, okay? The stuff doesn't last forever.
Yep.
You know, if we'd have kept up with it, maybe wouldn't be taking such a big hit right now, but we don't. We have a tendency not to do that.
Right.
We have a tendency to try to get as much out of whatever it is that we have
Yeah.
for as long as we can until we're actually forced into doing something.
Yep.
And I think at this point, we're forced into doing it, but I do have money that I put aside
Yeah.
in my budget to help cover some of the costs.
Okay.
And Charlie and I have been working together on this
Yeah.
thing. And the security for the girls next door is streamed in over there. You know, we really need 360 around the
Yeah.
building, we don't.
Yeah.
We'd know what happened to that jail if we had
Yeah, exactly.
cameras on that
Yeah.
side of the
Exactly.
building which watch that.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I think it's needed. I do have money in my budget to cover some of that
Right.
cost.
Okay.
But I don't think it's up to the police department to cover all the costs.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of the
Oh, no.
buildings, yeah.
Yeah.
And Charlie put together a good plan, I think.
All right.
about
All right,
how
so
we-
this isn't just all about the police department. This is also about, I would say, the public too. This is about safety and security for the people that come into the office,
Yep.
for the residents of the town,
Yep.
for the ladies at the front desk. This also, the example that Mango gave me was they had another town that they had a camera on the front counter and there's dispute over about a $5,000 payment. They were able to take the camera and zoom right in to clarify that.
Wow.
So there will be a few blind spots, he said, on the building. They can't cover everything, but this package gives us the ability to cover those blind spots
Yep.
going forward.
Yeah.
Would this include like a surface mount at your doorways? Do you see this, the round
That's what he
flush
said,
mount
yeah.
where when you walk up to the door, you get the facial recognition?
Yeah.
If someone does mess with your property, you know who it is?
He told us they're gonna put one, they could put one at the counter. It will be up there, it'll look down, there'll be one that gets the whole area. There will be ones that he said will get, I believe, license plates when someone's leaving, because there's not as coverage for cars that are going by. they've even had, and the ones now, they don't help, they've had calls that where the cars going by that they wish they could have.
Yeah, we had a few times because the camera doesn't quite reach out far enough.
Yeah.
One was a guy who was held up supposedly at night point and they stole his cell phone and whatever. Supposedly the car went up Highland Street.
Oh my.
Got
So
on
this
video,
would pick that up on Highland Street?
It will catch right there in front of Highland Street.
Wow, wow.
The camera we have now does, you can see out and see cars going by, but
Yeah, you can't, no
because
detail.
once you start to zoom in, you lose the pictures.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's all-
It's antiquated the day after it's made.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that will help. We've used it a couple times on a couple different things where some crime has happened in town, and we went to those cameras hoping that we saw
Yeah.
the individual's car driving by, because we
Yeah.
had information on who it was,
Right.
but we just couldn't
Okay.
confirm the vehicle.
Right.
Any other questions?
No. So from a finance perspective.
Yes, please.
Tony budgeted a little bit in his budget, like he said. We just didn't really know the estimate. We probably would have asked the budget committee if we could have had a little bit more, but we just didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was planning to do the entire building and more of the office.
Yeah.
Because we didn't understand there was that much of a need there until the incidents that happened. So, but we do have that building line that we could take 10,000 from, and then a little bit
Is
left
that,
over.
wait a minute, the building line, that's from the town building?
Town budget
Okay,
line.
how much
From the
is
warrant article.
from the police department?
4,200.
Okay,
But my thought was, let's not deplete the entire building maintenance
right,
line.
right,
So
no, I
that-
agree.
That would leave like $3,000 left.
Yeah. Nope,
Unless you
definitely.
wanted to.
No,
move
I
it to
don't.
the-
That would leave the 3,000, but
No.
another 25 to be deposited in December, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's not empty, it's
Yeah.
just forthcoming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Essentially, these two projects is the amount of what was appropriated this year.
okay.
Give or take 4,000 or 5,000.
Yeah. So you're about the same.
So the motion, you have the amount of $17,080. That's the combined contribution of building maintenance, police, and so forth? Okay. Let's get the motion on the table to approve the proposal from Mango Security in the amount of $17,080 for the installation of security cameras at the town office building and Ashland Police Department.
I'll make said motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
We got to take a little bit out of capital reserves.
Okay, so, do you want to clarify the motion with where it's coming from, or is it
Sure.
just satisfactory?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So, you want to
Then
break
I
that
would
down
just-
again?
Yes, I'd make the motion to approve the $17,080 for the installation of security cameras on the town office building, with 4,200 coming from the police department, 10,000 coming from
Building maintenance.
building maintenance,
Yeah.
and 2,880 coming from the town building maintenance.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? When would this be done?
No.
Sorry, just
Have to
curious.
find that out.
Yeah, yeah, spring, dreamer. Okay,
When the weather warms up.
yeah,
I'm not sure when he's gonna
okay,
be able to start the project.
okay.
I would like it sooner than later.
Yeah, I would, we all would, we all would. Long overdue.
Crime doesn't wait for
Yeah.
Exactly,
people to get
exactly. All right, thank you. CIA Technologies.
So probably give information to people with crime.
Oh, well.
Okay, so CAI Technologies, this is the digital map parcel proposal
Yep.
that the town has been working on for, I think you could say, for quite some time. This is the next step. I mean,
Okay.
essentially, we've been talking about this. We talked about it last year. The board had meetings with CAI Technology, and the town voted, let's go ahead and move this forward. This is the contract to move that forward. This is the next step. This is the beginning of auditing all of our parcels in town, 1,700, to make sure that they have the right size, the right acreage, all that data and information. That data and information is consolidated and put into a geographic information system that allows the public to access this information. It will be online, so, and there's a lot of uses.
Yeah.
You can, I'm not gonna go into everything,
No,
but there's a
we've
lot of uses
discussed
that you can use
GIS
for
for a very
GIS.
long time.
Yep, yep.
So, this is a 3-year agreement, the 117,900, is that the total for the
That's
3
the
years? So
total
we
of
do a
3
third, a
years.
third, a
Yeah.
third?
And the plan is, there's no taxation, because each year we'll go back to the voters
Yeah.
and say, can we take it from the unassigned fund balance?
Okay,
It's there.
Okay.
And so there's no taxation.
It's almost
Okay.
like an escape clause.
yeah,
Along the way, when we met with CI Technology, they will be coming before the board to give the board and the public updates.
Good.
This is where we're at, this is what we're doing each step of the way.
Okay.
They plan on coming to the board.
okay.
This is extremely labor intensive.
Oh, I know, believe me, I know.
Yeah.
So the motion
For us in
is
the office too.
to approve a proposal with CAI Technologies, a 3-year agreement in the amount of $117,900 for the purpose of upgrading the town tax maps and creation of the town's geographical information system. Each segment to be paid for by unassigned fund balance. So that's the motion.
Yeah, I mean, that would be
Yeah.
a warrant article. It'll be a
Yeah,
warrant article
But
each
this year, it was a warrant
Yeah.
article to approve
Yeah.
it, but we just need to approve the whole contract
The-
at this
yes.
point. Okay,
We only have to come up with 3,900 right now. They want 10% down.
okay,
My thought was we'll approve it now.
Yeah.
And then we're sort of like a hang up with the treasurer and the cash flow
Yeah.
on whether or not we fund that. They like to fund these CRFs in December.
Yeah.
Because the tax money that came in is
Yeah.
getting kind of low until June.
right.
So that's why.
That's fine.
That's why they're funded in December. So
Okay.
we would have to probably pay the $3,900. $3,900
$39,000.
is now. No, we only
No,
have to pay the $3,900. They only ask
Oh,
for
okay,
10%.
10%, got it.
Because the project doesn't start until
Okay.
January. We have to get in line.
Okay, all right,
Yep. So, but then we would just ask for reimbursement from
Okay.
the trustees
Okay.
later.
so a motion to approve the 3-year contract with CAI Technologies?
Since it is a town issue rather than a water and sewer issue, and we'll forward this message to Charlie for consideration by the Board of Selectmen. And Whitley said, "The host municipalities are in the best position to file such a motion, so this really needs to come from host communities." And he said he'll be working with other represented municipalities as well as the unrepresented towns in the North Country and Grafton County on this filing. I don't anticipate this being a very time-consuming filing because it is a very narrow issue, and I'd be working with the other parties to file this as one joint motion. And so he's asking if your town does not wish to participate or objects to filing, please let him know by this Friday.
What is the cost?
Yeah.
Because we have no budget for this.
That's just it.
Yeah.
I don't know the cost. It
Yeah.
doesn't say what it's going to cost us, nor,
I mean, my feeling is I
Doesn't
don't
say-
object to it, but we
Right.
don't have any cost to participate in it, so.
yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering. That's why I was gonna ask the board, should we, because we don't know the cost, should
Yeah.
we find out before we make a decision? However, it's Friday, they're asking
Yeah.
are they automatically, the way this reads, it says if we
Right.
don't wish to participate, let them know by Friday, April
Yeah.
20th.
Yeah.
So
I don't
if we
know if-
don't let them know, does that mean we're automatically involved in this motion?
I would
You're
suggest that
Yeah.
we say we don't object to the motion, but we have no funds to,
Yeah.
to pay for legal fees.
Yeah, because I don't, usually how those
Okay.
work are, the attorney will send a bill, and then it's divided
Right,
into the
between
number of
all those
towns
towns.
that are, and I don't
Right.
know.
What is it, Municipal Group 3,
Yeah, whatever
South
we
or
are.
whatever, David?
Yeah.
And that's,
But it sounds like this is going to be a much larger group than that.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
less cost per
And all
municipality.
participating
yeah, because it's
hosts and-
non-represented
Yeah.
towns too.
Yeah.
So-
but
But he
I
did-
didn't
he
get
didn't-
all that, I didn't get that part
Yeah.
of the email, but.
I guess to be devil's advocate to it, we should think about it in this aspect. If we're being offered now to be a smaller part of a greater group, the legal obligation, if any, monetarily, will be less than if we had to go at this mano a mano with a larger entity.
I'm sure that's true, but again, we have no idea what that money is. I mean.
It could be
It could
surprise,
be
surprise,
$10,000, which is a lot to us.
Yes.
It may not be
Right.
anything to Plymouth. So I'm reluctant to say we have any money to fund it without knowing it. But I certainly don't object to the towns doing it. That way we wouldn't be, we wouldn't be saying, no, we don't want this to happen.
Right.
Well, they wouldn't
So
be,
it's-
the thing is, they wouldn't be able to supersede our rules, town rules and
It
regulations.
wouldn't, this is if I understand right, a joint.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if they win this argument, anybody, it will apply to any
Anybody.
town.
Oh,
Yep.
any town.
Yeah, not
Roads.
just,
Yeah,
Roads.
roads,
Right, not just
town
the
roads.
ones
Town
that
roads.
are
Town
paying,
roads,
town
town
roads that
roads.
are paying towards
So in our
Right.
case, they'd be, looking at, say, Collins Street.
street.
See,
yeah.
we're blessed that we only have two really
We have a
roads
tiny
that are
little
involved.
section,
That's
We're
right.
not, we're not Plymouth, but at the
Right.
same time, if you look at the,
That's right.
moving forward with our town, those two roads entail every part of the infrastructure of our town.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, you have to consider that. I mean, when you look at all the stuff we dealt with Northern Pass, but all the work that Water and Sewer has put forward, I know that this is a town issue and we need to discuss it, but to look at, well, here's one, to look at their best interests. Look at it this way, if they can come in and say, we're gonna tear up Cedar Lane because this is a town road and it messes up what Mr. Toth does down there and anything else, or, conversely, the other end, Collins Street, we have to legally maintain access to those lagoons. Homeland Security
Yeah.
requires it.
Right.
So, are they gonna allow someone else to get in the middle and say, oh, well, we need to shut down both roads for a week, and then we have to play Mother May I
Yeah.
to use our own road?
Should we maybe we should ask Charlie to contact Steve,
But
as
we're
soon
not
as
gonna
he
meet
can and
again.
find out.
Yeah.
So
I know,
we
but
need
he
to-
could find out.
Yeah.
And,
I think the language you use, we
Yeah.
don't object, but
We don't object, but we have no funds
we
to
have no
pay for
funds,
legal
we
fees.
need to put it out there.
More
we should
power to
send-
them if they
So we're
can do
asking
it.
for Charlie to send a letter on
Yeah.
our behalf.
I think so.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay. then
wanna
we-
Can you
vote
make
on
that, can you
consensus?
make that motion?
I'll make a motion that we send a formal letter, or that our town administrator send a formal letter to Steve Whitley and say we have no opposition to the motion that he is asking us to be part of, but we aren't aware of what the cost is.
No, I would just say we have no committed funds.
Oh, we have no committed
In our
funds
budget at this
in our
point.
budget right now to
Right,
do this.
I'll second said motion.
okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anything else? The new business?
No, not
Okay.
under, no.
Select board items, we have one commission appointment that's on the agenda, but I'd just like to make a statement, and that is, we have a number of positions that are coming due for expiry at the end of this month. Specifically, there are two on the planning board.
Right.
And planning board is the only one of these committees that has positions or expiries that have a very set schedule for meetings. And their first meeting in May comes before our next official meeting. So until I get, letters of intent for these expiring positions, we can't nominate them tonight unless somebody's willing to speak up. So I would suggest, just for the purpose of filling the committees, now we got a lot of positions, planning
Yeah.
board, ZBA. Planning board, by the way, we have 3 members on it. One is the ex officio, and we have 2 permanent members. They're
Right.
both due for renewal, we
Right.
hope. There are 2 other positions that are vacant, and there's
Right.
2 alternatives that are vacant, and we really,
Three.
really want to have
First
people,
3.
3, okay. Really, really want to have these positions filled. The planning board is
Right.
such an important thing.
I think we have-
ZBA,
legally
we have to, exactly. Conservation Commission is on the verge of not having
I
a
could
quorum.
read it.
ZBA is on the verge of not having a quorum. And I don't know how to say this more pleadingly. We need help, people. There's a handful of people in this town that spread themselves very thin. And there's a lot to be done in this town. There's a lot of good things in this town. I am so positive about our future in this town. If we can all just kind of play nice in the sandbox and work together and pitch in. Please come forward and put your name in for these committees. We need the help. There's a lot of important work to be done. But anyway, I started saying, can we have a very brief special meeting 2 weeks from today, which is the end of April 30th, I believe, just to, ask, I'm putting a note out to the public, please submit your name for any vacancies, so that we can consider all of those on one day.
All right.
And fill all these positions. Could I have a motion for a very brief meeting of 2 weeks from today to fill these positions, hopefully?
I'll make that motion to hold a brief meeting
Okay.
2 weeks from today
Okay,
whatever the date is.
yeah.
The
30th,
I think it's the,
At
let me just check. At
6:30.
6:30. We don't need to have it filmed or anything. We just need to finalize, yeah, it's
To finalize
30th.
nominations for board.
Right,
Period.
because
Shouldn't we have it filmed if we're gonna have looking for
we
involvement?
can, just saying if that's gonna be a problem, we don't have to do that. Our next official meeting is not till the 7th.
I'm just
Yeah.
thinking
But the
of
planning board
transparency.
specifically, I want to have filled, so we don't have to
Yes.
have them postpone a meeting because their members haven't been reappointed.
Yeah, and we have things to move on.
We have things to move on.
Oh, you have
Yes.
discussion?
Yeah,
I would say,
No, it wasn't seconded.
yeah, need a second.
You can second for
I'll
discussion.
second it.
Okay, all right.
Okay. There's some confusion over the process.
Yes.
That everybody needs to be on the same page.
Yes.
How long your term goes for. So you know what year it expires. So you're aware that as the time comes around that you, and I would like to see everyone have a letter of intent. Even if they say, please reappoint me so I can continue the work I have been doing for the
Right.
past 3
Yeah,
years.
right.
So it's documented,
Right.
it's on file in the office, it's easily accessible, so the town clerk knows
Right,
who's due to be,
Yeah.
whose term is due to be
Right.
up, no automatic rollovers.
no, and we do not want to discourage
Discourage
anyone
anybody.
from continuing the work. I know people have worked extremely
I
hard.
consider this like housekeeping.
Yeah, it is housekeeping,
Because
but
right
just for
now, it's been
transparency.
kind of a haphazard type of way of doing things.
Yeah.
I filled in for somebody, and I was talking earlier today about this, Conservation Commission. They did not, I believe it was 3 months, they couldn't hold a meeting because they didn't have a quorum.
Yep.
That's right.
And I think it was, the person who I stepped forward to take their place had just been appointed like in May.
Yeah.
And I was appointed, I think, in July
Yeah.
or August.
Yeah.
So I basically fulfilled the rest of his term. I was then reappointed, and I actually forgot really when my term,
Yeah.
it kind of all blurred together, and it was not posted correctly on the website. I did not have my paper that when I took my oath with a date. So, yeah, I wasn't aware.
Maybe we could post it, like have the whole list of what we need.
I was just gonna ask Charlie.
In the post
Yes.
office.
Yeah.
And town hall.
I think that's a great
and
idea.
Maybe even in the paper.
I think that's
How
a
about
great
Bob
idea.
Servine?
Wherever, I think we need to get the word out there. We've got a lot of positions to fill, and a lot of people, we want to make sure they continue on their hard
And
work.
I noticed we
So-
have some boards here that haven't met in a couple of years. Do they even
Exist.
exist?
Yeah, yeah.
CIP and housing standards?
Yes.
Well, CIP is now being handled by Charlie at the department head meeting, so
Okay.
that
Right.
committee is not.
Right.
So we
The
just,
Housing Standards Board meets on a per incident.
that's-
We don't have a
Right.
regular meeting, we meet when there's issues to be discussed.
Right.
so I believe somebody was just reappointed fairly recently.
Kendall Hughes.
Yes, the capital improvement program, not real, and
Oh.
it was approved. And didn't realize that it's now been rolled. Yeah, well, see, that's why I said.
Kendall Hughes asked to be reappointed to Housing Standards. I didn't know that anybody, we don't have a CIP committee.
No, and
so-
that's why I
You're
call it
right.
housekeeping.
Yeah, it is
It's-
housekeeping.
He needs to be
Yeah.
informed that this
So
is
we should
rolled
go
up,
through that
yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah, we should go through the whole thing, but anyway.
So everybody's on the same page.
Exactly. So Charlie, please, let's update this thing, have another
Well,
brief
this is
meeting.
from the clerk.
This is from the clerk,
Clerk,
but
yeah.
there's some problems, like,
Yeah.
and CIP being one of them.
Right.
We,
Yeah.
we have a different process now. So there is no CIP committee, per se.
Well, how can you have a CIP program?
We have a CIP program, but Charlie is dealing with it directly
It's
with,
defined by your RSA.
It is,
It's not-
yes.
Charlie is not.
No, I'm
Charlie's not
not.
the
But
CIP.
it's
I'm
a different
not the
process.
CIP
Right.
guy.
but you don't have that committee coming in anymore. I mean, you're handling the CIP updates directly with the department heads, and they were, I don't know, do we need to have a committee at this point? How is this done? We don't have a meeting for,
What do you think, planning board? CIP works in conjunction with the planning board. I mean,
This was
it's,
2014,
CIP 's
I believe
hand in
this was
hand. It's supposed to go with the master
2016 was our
plan.
last meeting. I looked it up today.
Right?
Should have written it
Yeah.
down, yeah. That's why I said, we've got some housekeeping.
we do a lot of
Thanks.
housekeeping. Steve Felton is still
I'll
on this
put
list.
it, all right. So what I've done with CIP, I've
Yeah.
reorganized the spreadsheet.
Okay.
I've reorganized the forms. I've sent it to department heads
Mm-hmm.
as we go along in the year, and I get more requests back from the department heads. I actually have one myself. I got a quote for redoing the carpets and the tile and the PD that I think would be good for CIP. And I know Ian had a couple things for the park, so maybe we revisit it at the end of the year once we get back from all of the department heads, and if we have to ask for the public for input, you know, maybe we revisit it then around budget season or something, or especially during the warrant article.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, would you like to talk about this, because you're the one that got the whole thing going originally?
Yeah, I did.
I actually didn't get it going, it was Steve.
Well, Steve Felton, is Steve still out there? You're still on the committee, come on in, Steve.
You're still on a committee, you just don't know it.
Yeah.
You're right, I don't know.
No, that, yeah.
How do we need to move forward with the CIP? I mean, we had a committee, you guys set up all the spreadsheets, you met with the department heads, you've got a system in place, and now Charlie's keeping it updated with the department heads. Susan says by RSA we need a CIP committee. Can the committee be structured of department heads?
No.
The way it was written.
Well, I guess you could interpret it that the committee was supposed to come up with the program, and we came up with the 10-year
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So just to update it is, obviously, you take off last year, you add the next year,
Right.
the 10 years.
Right.
And I guess the update itself is all by dealing with department heads.
Yeah.
Which Charlie does anyway.
Right.
And again, the CIP supposedly has the power of demanding people to come in and talk to them, which we weren't successful with.
Yeah, well, that's, he has a captive audience.
Yeah. And it makes sense that it just plays into the whole budget process.
Yes, it does, absolutely
So you
does.
fulfilled your duty
fulfilled the
by
duties.
setting it up.
The template
What
is
is
there.
there.
Yeah.
The template is there to
Yeah.
be used and updated.
Okay,
Right.
The only thing you might want to consider is maybe instead of having a group that meets, 12 times a year, maybe they meet 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
3 or 4 times a year where
Full time, yeah.
they get together with you
Right.
and
Yeah.
the
Would that
group
be
is
like,
just-
is that ad hoc? Would that be considered an ad hoc committee
You know.
as
yeah.
needed?
I mean, I think the committee should just maybe once or twice, right before when you prepare your warrant, to talk to the selectmen about what type of capital infrastructure projects we really
don't have
need
enough
to move forward on. And if you have something bigger, maybe have more than 2 at the beginning of the year. I mean, the importance of this committee is to make recommendations, but also to talk about this with the public. I mean, this is about the needs of the town
Yeah.
Right.
more than it is any want that a department
no,
head
exactly.
wants.
Right.
I think you should do it, I mean, from a budgetary standpoint, my opinion is that you should do it quarterly. Because then if Tony has an increased expense or, accelerated wear and tear on an item, at least he could get a heads up to Charlie and to the CIP and we can plan ahead.
That's why we put it in Charlie's lap, because he talks to the department heads on a regular basis, and they're gonna tell him, first of all, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
My loader broke down and it's
Yeah.
dead on the road.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets that information.
It just seems like there's some
Yeah.
RSA structure that we need to adhere to.
Well,
So I want to make sure we do that.
that's why I was asking Susan. Are we
Well,
covered by
But
just?
the warrant article that formed itself.
Yeah.
And the RSA.
Yeah.
That allowed a separate committee, not under the planning board.
Yeah.
It still has to involve the planning board
Yeah.
member.
Yeah,
That was set up for it. So you can't just say, well, we can throw out the warrant article that set this up, or the RSA that.
but we set it
Clearly
up.
defines what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think the question comes down to, do we have a committee? Because right
Right.
now, you're on it, your expiration date is 30th. Kendall Hughes has supposedly been reappointed.
Yeah.
We never, maybe Patsy called him, I don't know. Steve Felton is,
Didn't know.
there's no answer here, there's no date. There's a vacant
You're a
position,
lifer.
and some reason, I'm the liaison, but my term expires at the end of this month. I mean, we can continue to have
Right.
a subcommittee, and there can still be a liaison from the select board to meet on a quarterly basis, as Harold suggested, just to kind of keep track of the process. But- And it would be nice,
Quarterly
maybe the
sounds
planning board representative, just
Right.
touch base with us from time to time, then we still have an existing committee.
So it's hard to encourage people to join when we have some committees here that's
Well,
like-
that's why this needs
Yeah.
to be cleaned up. There are clearly positions that desperately need to be filled. Zoning board, planning board, conservation commission, budget committee, what else?
All of them?
Yes, really,
Um,
all of them.
Well, certainly all of them can, but, those three things we need to have in town. We desperately need to have in town, and they're going to expire.
Making a motion to appoint Kendall Hughes, and can we do that now?
We can do that now, or we can do it all in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Technically
Yeah, and
have a
if I would
motion right
recommend,
now.
Because he,
Yeah, we have
is
a
his
motion
position,
already.
is his position,
Yeah.
you know, he was taking Kathleen's position or proposed to take Kathleen's position, and her position, when did that expire? And is it just for 2 weeks, and what's the point of appointing him now if we
Well,
appoint him?
for-
It expired 2 weeks ago. So, well, he put in for it at the last.
Yeah, I just don't want to see the man have to wait.
No,
We
I know,
tabled it last
but there
time.
are no meetings, at least with Heritage Commission, there are no meetings between now and whenever. They're not
That's
meeting
fine,
until
but
the
it's
mid-May.
The precedent it's setting is somebody wants to join.
Yeah.
Put it off, now you're gonna put it off again.
Yeah, I don't know why it was put off 2 weeks
Because
ago.
we didn't have five
Either,
people.
But given that we have all these other
It should be
issues, it
addressed
could be
at this
one
point.
just
No,
discussion.
Ann's right.
Yeah.
Because we waited for it
Okay.
to have
You're tabled.
All right, all right.
Well, I just don't want it, I don't want it to look
And
convoluted
we
that
have a
we're
full board.
putting him off, but then we're making a special meeting for someone else.
No, my
Right,
question,
you know?
my question with
put off
Kendall
2 weeks
is the position that he's applied for, it was filling Kathleen's position, who
No.
became a board member, and was that for only 2 weeks? Or
That was
is this,
not really
is
taking
this?
my position.
Okay,
No,
it was a
it's vacant.
vacant position, but you were in there.
The spreadsheet has it incorrect. It only had, first of all, it lists 4 regular members and 4 alternates. We have 5 regular members.
Right.
And the one vacancy was for Kathleen leaving, and it expires on April
April 30th.
30th of
Okay.
this month.
Okay, so,
That's fine, but
That's
it's on
right.
April 30th, he put in for it.
I know, but what
Well,
I'm
that's
saying,
If he gets appointed
if he gets
now,
appointed now, it's for 2 weeks.
He's for 2 weeks.
So we
and then he
redo it.
has to be
I understand
reappointed
that.
for the next 3 years.
I understand that totally, and I'm sure he will as well. But the fact is, you keep saying you need members. When somebody puts in for it, the first time it was brought to the meeting, it was put off, and now we're doing it again? Doesn't set a good example for people.
No,
who want to
I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. I'm just saying, if it's only for 2 weeks, it's not worth doing at this point, if the position
So
expires.
everybody will be
April 30th.
starting from the
Yeah,
same
but it-
point.
what
But-
difference does it make? We may as well. I
Well,
mean,
what I'm saying is he was on the agenda and this
Right.
wasn't, so.
Okay, all right,
Right.
no, listen, I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, if that's what you want to do, that's
What we-
fine,
What
but,
we can do is we can just appoint him now, and then we can also have the meeting.
Yes.
That way we.
Right.
it's
well, we have to
Right.
have the meeting for the planning board, because we haven't gotten responses from,
no, you're right, Casey.
yeah, okay, that's
that way-
fine,
That way it's both sides.
that's fine,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, so like I said, I will make a motion to appoint Kendall Hughes to the Heritage Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Thoughts?
I'm confused.
Okay,
now.
no, the board consensus was that because he put his name in a while ago, that they act on this one appointment. And I'm assuming this would go beyond April 30th.
Yeah, well, Patsy wrote down that the appointment is in the signature file.
Okay.
For 2021.
For 20,
Yep.
okay, I just want to make
I just had not
sure.
signed it because we hadn't done this
Okay,
yet.
okay,
No.
Right,
all right.
So,
It's in there.
okay.
Any
Yeah.
further
Look at it.
discussion?
yeah.
You want to make a comment?
Well, I was told I was not allowed or somehow to be reappointed prior to April 30th.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, that's where the confusion is in.
So for my 3 years,
Yeah.
I can't get appointed tonight, even if I put my letter in, because I was told it wasn't
Yeah, well-
going to be done before
Yeah.
April 30th.
That's where the confusion has come in. That's why
So if he gets appointed now, he's
we're,
getting appointed for
But this is
filling the vacancy.
No, she's
not for
no.
the next 3 years.
yeah. See, that's where the confusion comes in, and that's why I suggested that we put it off, because that communication has been messed up, and some people were told, we can't appoint you way in advance, and some people were told, yes, we can. And it's got to be fair to everybody, and I understand, you know, that Kendall put his name in 2 weeks ago, and, you know, we shouldn't put it off again, but because some people were
But he'll
told.
be ready.
Redo
He'll
it.
be ready for the next
Right.
meeting
Right.
in May.
If we do it all in 2 weeks, he'll still be
And
ready. He won't miss any
fulfilling his-
meetings.
The full 3
Yeah.
years that is allotted
Right.
for this.
Right,
But the
just because,
signatures are already for the full 3 years.
I know that, but because the communication was not sent to everybody the same way. And if what Susan says is true, she was told she couldn't put her name in advance, then we can't do it for one and not for the other.
No.
His isn't in
Wait,
advance.
you can put your name in advance, but you shouldn't do the appointment
no incumbent
until
Until
before the April 30th expiration.
Well,
That's why you should
all
do.
right, it's the same thing. We haven't gotten names for some of these positions yet that are expiring April 30th because there
we
was a
have.
misunderstanding.
Yeah, but
We
we
have.
received names from.
Mardine
Yep.
put in for planning, and Katie Marr for
Yes.
Scribner trustees, and I believe Katie for Heritage. I'll have to double check the email on that.
And
You have
we'll
Kendall
all-
Hughes for here.
And we'll act on them.
We'll act on them all. And Susan was apparently
But yeah,
told
this is
that
empty,
she...
so this is irrelevant.
It's apples and oranges, this is an empty one.
To be
Yeah.
put
This
on
is an empty
again.
new spot,
You still
though.
have
It's
vacant.
not-
It's still
Well,
vacant because it was gonna be expired on the 30th of April.
Technically, even though I resigned,
Just says
technically my
vacant, but it's
spot,
vacant.
I'm still
Yeah.
there until the 30th, when
Right.
I officially, my term expires. I resigned because I was told, because I had been elected, that, you know, that it was my duty to resign.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
but there was already an absence before you resigned. There was already a vacancy, rather.
No, it was not.
You just said that on here there was 5 and not 4 on Heritage, and here we're showing.
Because
I was 5.
she was number 5, which should have been regular instead of alternate
Alternate.
for the vacancy.
Yeah.
And can I just
Yes,
add one more
please.
thing to this? It's important to keep which dates people expire.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's supposed to be on the rotating basis, that you never have more than 2 people coming up
Right.
for reappointment.
Which we have
or
now.
appointment at the same time.
Right, right, which
So
we
when
do
you
have
start-
now.
When you start with, even with the planning board, a member who re-upped last year and then resigned this year was told she could do a
I know.
2-year term.
I know,
Well, it's just
that
like the
needs...
select board, we had someone step down, stuff happens.
Yeah, no, that's a different issue,
I'm
Carol.
not talking
different.
about
No,
the
no,
issue
no,
as to
no,
what,
no.
but if it's on the record that she had a 2-year term, so her term ends on 19, and all the other ones, 2 other ones also end on 19.
Yeah.
Then you have a quorum all needing to be appointed
Yeah.
at the same year.
time.
Right,
All of the RSAs say the first year, when you first establish
Yeah.
a board,
You stagger them.
you start with a stagger 1 year, 2 year,
Right.
3 year, and thereafter, everyone gets 3 years.
right,
It's the same with the Memorial Park trustees, which also is
Yeah.
screwed up.
So if there's a vacancy after this April date, somebody in May wants to be appointed to a committee, then they don't have to wait till next April.
no, but that's a vacancy. But right
But
now,
because this says the
we have expiry dates that I'm concerned
Oh,
about.
I see.
And for
Oh, I
the
see.
planning board
I
in
see.
particular, when the 2 permanent members are both up
Right.
for renewal, we cannot
get it.
postpone their meeting and wait till
Right.
May 7th. That's why I want to have a meeting. And
Okay.
Susan needs an opportunity if she plans to put in her name.
Don't
Yes.
say permanent members, say regular.
Regular members, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you're nailed to the chair, there's no
She's
leaving.
another lifer.
Okay, I'm just, I'm not trying to turn anybody off.
No.
I'm just trying to get, like Kathleen said, some housekeeping.
Keeping.
Okay, we'll fix it as much as we can in 2 weeks, and then going forward, when there's a vacancy,
yes.
anybody can apply
Right.
whenever there's a vacancy,
And
anytime,
they know
Alright.
it goes from March 30th to April 30th.
on a certain
Certain
date.
Yes.
And like Susan said, it has to be a rotating 3-year position, so that we don't end up with a planning board that can have not a quorum,
everything's
and zoning board
voted
that
on-
can't have a
on one-
quorum.
Yeah, this should.
It's a mess.
Yeah, this shouldn't have
Right.
happened, yeah.
So,
I
So-
still don't understand what the issue is.
the issue is, we're going to clean up the mess.
Yeah.
And to clean up the communication and making sure that everybody hears the same thing. And that we'll do in 2 weeks.
So we're saying
And
no to Kendall.
I'm just
I have
saying
a motion on the
table.
table.
So my part of the discussion is we
Point of order.
table it for 2 weeks and then vote on it when it's all done at one time.
And then the April,
We're all
the May
starting on the
meet at
same
same
place.
place are at all the May meetings.
Yeah,
So you have
starting,
to rescind
absolutely.
the motion. You have to rescind the motion in the second.
Well, that's your choice. You have a motion that's seconded and.
All right, hold on a second.
I have a motion.
What do you want me to ask the clerk if these dates are right or wrong?
Well, Kendall.
Because that's what you're saying. I mean, the clerk came back with the appointment letter
I know.
that says the appointment's for 3 years. That's where this
2021.
stuff comes from.
Again,
you're
Charlie,
asking-
my concern is the communication that went to one member whose term is up on the April 30th, was that not to apply yet, and somebody who's taking a vacant
Yes.
position that was up on the 30th put in the name.
The issue was not maybe that information came from me because I said that.
Well, I wasn't part of the communication.
All right,
I'm just
so
trying
here's what
to
happened.
step in and clean up a mess.
Before, apparently Patsy used to call people
Yeah.
and
Yes.
say, hey, do you want to be
Right. Yes.
reappointed?
Yes.
I said to Patsy, I don't think that's right and fair to the public because
It's not.
their,
No one
their
can come
appointment goes to April 30th.
Right.
We can't be reappointing people on April 30th or the 29th because if someone from the public wants to join one of these open vacancies, we can't sit there and say, oh, sorry, we already filled it with someone else.
No,
And that's what happened.
You're right.
And
There's no
apparently
such thing as incumbent
that's what
appointee,
happened,
that's-
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
So, I said to her, we just can't be doing that anymore.
No, we can't.
Because we have to have applications. I prefer that they put it in writing, they come to a select board meeting and talk to everyone here.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where it's at. I mean, what you're saying, it seems like you want to find out if these dates are valid.
Well, that's also part of we've had some mistakes, as Susan
You know.
pointed out in the past, with somebody who was told she could serve for 2 years
Yes,
instead
I
of-
know of 2 mistakes
Yeah.
that happened,
Yeah.
and,
That needs to be,
Yeah.
needs to be verified, that's all. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know how the best to go about that. Yes,
Well,
Susan.
it's all retained. It
Huh?
should
I
be.
know the Heritage Commission.
You
it's
know
all
the
retained.
Heritage Commission, yeah.
It's a little complicated because people leave and come back in.
I know.
When they
Yeah.
come back in, they are
Yeah.
filling out the vacancy of the term that expired on a
Right.
certain day.
Yeah.
Certain year.
Yeah. And that was my only concern
Right,
about Kendall,
yeah.
was he filling a vacancy that expired on April 30th, or is he filling a vacancy that will be going
That's
forward?
what we're all wanna know.
That's
I
what
know.
she-
That's what we wanna
He's asking to be
know.
appointed. Why does it matter if he's
Yeah.
gonna be there for 2 weeks? If
20
you
years.
appoint him and then say, okay, on the 30th your term is up. Okay, there were no meetings. That's fine. But he was asked to be appointed. If he's asked to be appointed, unless there's a reason why somebody there does not want to appoint him, I say the position's open. You're asking for people.
Listen, I will
Yeah.
go with the will of the board. If
Right.
that's what you want to do, you want to vote on that position, I'm fine with
If
it.
it's up again in April, or April 30th or whatever, then so be it.
Right.
Right.
But I just feel like putting people off is not gonna make people want.
well, I wish he was here
Right.
to express his opinion and
He has a
not,
meeting with
Yes,
his
Susan.
fire department stuff tonight.
Yes.
I just have one more question about the whole process involved here, as to why you always have to wait till, I mean, if it's all posted online as of all these vacancies, like planning board, we have had the alternate positions open for over
A long
2
time.
years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And the one from Erica is almost a year now.
Yeah.
So we have 2 regular members. who
And
have
those
not
could be
been-
appointed anytime.
They could have been appointed any time they have been listed. The same thing with the ZBA, it's been on the, maybe you just have to kind of advertise it more. But again, like anything else, whether it's a contract or any kind of renewal, it's like the process can happen prior to
Yes, it
the
can.
expiration.
It can.
And in the tradition of how this board has done it in the past, read all the minutes you want, that all the appointments tend to happen in April. And it's to say that as of May 1st, you are starting a new term.
Yep.
Or you're starting your
Yep.
term for the first time.
Yep.
So it's not that you have to wait for something to expire before you renew it.
Right.
You don't do that with contracts.
No, and
You
I'm
don't do
fine with that.
anything
I
else. You
just
have
was
some continuity. So if you had a more or less a deadline.
Yeah.
That maybe the second meeting that you have in the month of April is your appointment time. Anybody who's interested, who hasn't asked for the whole rest of the year.
Right.
Has until before the Friday before your second Monday meeting to put in their letter of intention.
Okay. And again, I'm fine with all of that. I don't see any reason to delay.
Mr. Hughes did that, so if you want to vote now, that you,
Yeah.
it's just that we were just trying to clarify that the term that is open as a vacancy right now is the one that ends on April 30th.
Right.
Madam Chair, I'd like to call the question.
Okay.
Me too.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor, and it's seconded, to appoint Kendall Hughes, and this is going to go till 2021? Is that the 3-year term?
Yes. That's what it states in here,
That's what the clerk wrote.
2021.
Yeah.
So
She
he's
keeps
applying for,
records of that,
he is
not me.
applying for a position that goes forward, not to fill
Yeah.
a 2-week
That's right.
vacancy. I just want that to be very clear, okay? Because I'm assuming there'll still be a vacancy going forward. So do we still need that meeting because
Right.
we have the
Yeah,
the planning board
Yeah,
to
we will.
appoint? Okay, I just want to make sure, we just want to include everybody that wants a position. So all of those in favor of appointing Kendall Hughes to the Heritage Commission, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. So, that will go forward. We will have a very brief meeting, and I'm asking
Okay.
people to put their name in. If your position expires April 30th,
Right.
please let us know, because we're
Right.
meeting just for you.
Yes.
Anyone?
Time or anything?
And
We
I
have
will ask the-
6:30.
sorry.
6:30. I hope it'll be no more than 15 minutes. We won't do any other business unless an emergency comes up.
Can
Okay.
do a group swearing in.
We could do a group swearing in. We could do that.
We have BB Can?
We can have PB Cam if you.
Very
if-
good. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
it's fine.
I will ask the clerk to clarify
And clarify
the dates.
this, and please post this.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to post this
I want,
exactly?
well, the corrected one.
Yeah.
Please let the people know what positions are available.
Well, except we still not sure about 2 of these.
No, I'm telling you, the Housing Standards Board, Kendall is on it, I'm on it, I have to be by definition, and Steve Heath is on it because he's the fire chief, and we meet on an issue-driven basis.
And maybe that needs to be,
Yeah.
that's another thing you
Yeah.
need to clarify, because when
Yeah.
I looked it up, it's like, 14 was the last minutes
Yeah.
that were.
You know, I mean, I'm in communication with Steve Heath
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
And if there's an issue that needs to be discussed by the whole Housing Standards Board, we will
And
meet.
how many people?
Right.
There's 3 of us.
There's 3 and that's all you need?
Well, that's all we have.
Well, is that a quorum?
It's a quorum. 3 people is a quorum.
And that's the other thing, we have to make sure that they're all quorums.
Yeah. And again, that's why I'm concerned about ZBA and certainly planning. Yeah, we need more people in planning.
Right.
Desperately need more people in
Yeah.
planning. If both Mardine and Susan re-up, and I certainly hope, I know Mardine already has, I certainly hope she will, we still have
We would
these
die.
other positions. We have these other positions that really need to be filled. I mean, that's how I got involved in town politics, is I wanted to be on the planning board, and there wasn't a position. I put my name in and said, if there's anything that comes up, and then an alternate position came up.
And you don't need experience.
And, well,
I mean,
going in as an
you're-
alternate is a great learning experience.
Yes,
And
it
and
is.
I always encourage people to come to meetings anyway.
Right.
To find out what goes on, and that's how you learn about the
I had
town.
my
sure.
arm twisted by the chair.
I know
of
you-
Board of Selectmen,
I know you did.
and-
I know you did.
And I don't regret it.
No, there's a lot of neat stuff. Again, I believe in this town. There's so many things to celebrate. We need to get back to celebrating them.
Right.
Instead of constantly complaining and fighting with each other and
And that's it, you learn the process instead of the talk on the street.
And that's what you gotta ignore. The talk on the street is devastating. You know, I should just say, I'm not listening.
Can we move
Because
on?
Yes, we can
Yes.
move on.
I'm ready to go home.
All right, very quickly, liaison reports.
You want me to go first? You want to go?
Oh, gosh, mine's long.
What?
Make it
Well,
brief.
Then you can't
Summarize
go.
it.
Okay,
Um,
go ahead.
Okay, I went to the DOT meeting, the presentation at the Booster Club on April 6th.
Yep.
It was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Charlie was there. We were well represented.
Good.
Which
Yeah.
was pointed out to us
It was
that
pointed out,
usually
that's right.
Excellent.
nobody shows up to these
Excellent,
meetings.
excellent,
Okay.
yep.
So it was Charlie, there was me, there was Alan Silly, Rusty Cross, and Steve Heath.
Okay.
It was agreed by the DOT representatives and the painting contractor that the Ashland overpass would be the first project as not to conflict the water and sewer septic
Okay.
receiving building. The proposed start date was end of April, beginning of May, I believe.
Weather permitting.
No, because it was very strange, because they were doing
All right.
Department of Labor negotiations
Yeah.
at this meeting,
Yeah.
and we eventually all left because it was a very strange, I mean, they were still negotiating contract issues.
Okay.
I went to the water and sewer work session, and there was a continued discussion of the septic lagoons and the DES. This subject came up again. DES is really pushing municipalities to look forward as phasing out of lagoons and going
Yeah.
to wastewater treatment
Right.
plants. No timeline has been
Yeah,
established,
that'll
but
be a very long time for us.
DES is putting it out
Yeah.
there, you need to start thinking about
Yeah.
that. At the Heritage meeting, another potential bond assessment will be followed up by me with the landowner for documentation. The reorganization was postponed to May. Renewal membership with New Hampshire Preservation Society was agreed on. The Town Hall L-chip project will be handled by Town Administrator and BOS, and we discussed that
Yep.
tonight here. Squamstock overview, another thing discussed here. Fran came and discussed her interest in an art space project to showcase local talent projects, and, I ran over mine here.
Yeah.
TOAD, which is the Town of Ashland Appreciation Day, TOAAD, that the project.
We're not apologizing.
Yeah, well, it was,
I know, it's fine.
The project focus will be on better shelving in the old jail and a general cleaning and of the old jail, and of course with
Okay.
approval of the BOS.
All right.
The photo project, further discussion whether to use shutter or flicker or shutterfly. They had different pros and cons about these setups, and we're still checking in on that. And the Memorials Project program will be a fall project. And I did not realize it, but David Rule kindly provides hard copies to all the BOS members of the minutes of the Heritage
Yep.
Commission, so everybody
Yeah.
should.
Yes.
He has,
we
and
do
it's
have
been
them,
very
yeah.
nice this year.
So,
All right, Lee?
Planning board. At the most recent planning board, we discussed how to word an ad for a possible office assistant for our land use board. At present, there's no one to assist applicants with questions or filling out applications or helping with the process. We also reviewed master plan goals for 2018 and went over the chapters we've already updated. We decided to get a copy of the building inspector's contract to review. And we're all going to be attending the state land use convention, which is 28th? April 28th? April 28th.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
I would like to tell Ann that when DOT met at the Booster Club, twice the lead person told me what a beautiful building it was.
That's nice.
I said, thank you the first time. I said, parking can be a little tight, and he repeated it again. I said, thank you, and wondered if he was fishing for something. So if you get, and with the way they were handling this meeting, it was a divisional meeting. They, I guess, were looking for a spot that was accessible to everybody.
Good.
And how many people ended up being there? 12, 14?
Oh, yeah.
14.
That's nice.
We took up the two tables, so if you get a request, it's because it
Of
was.
you?
Because they thought it was a beautiful building. And we didn't even turn the heat off. They
All
still
right.
liked it.
Economic development, you already got my update this
Yeah.
earlier. Casey?
Electric department, they're looking into getting their ducks in a row in terms of their stock in case any emergencies happen, because right now they don't have much stock available.
What do you mean stock?
Like if something goes down, then
Oh.
they'll have something to
Oh,
replace it.
parts?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Like transformers and
Yeah,
things.
got it, okay, all right.
Because they don't really have much in stock right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was asked to ask them about the new electric in the new building.
Yeah.
And they said that there was a miscommunication, that it was only going to be for the single year, no electric, and then after that, they can have power there. And they said they need it for fire alarms and their daily operations and everything. They also said there's a work session back in either May or June of 2016 that states that's in there. So
Okay.
I haven't gone through and looked, but
Okay.
I will.
All right.
And also they said if there's ever any more questions, they're happy to come because
Have they talked about the swale yet?
Or the
no,
topsoil.
Or the
they
topsoil.
said they're going to get
Or
to
the
it, but
non-weed.
they forgot and went to non-public and the meeting adjourned.
Okay.
So I'll
Thank
bring it
you.
up again.
Please,
Was
thank
there
you.
something besides the swale, Harold?
Yes, there's the
The soil.
2 foot of covering that's supposed to be over contaminated soil.
Oh, yeah.
The pile that was left there, and also there was one load of knotweed that didn't fit on the truck that's still there.
Okay.
That needs to be
Yeah.
tended to, and
No,
it's
it's not.
growing again. Or as
Okay.
of last fall, it was growing again.
All right. Harold, anything?
No, ma'am?
Oh, no budget committee meetings, huh?
No.
All right, anything else, please? Yes, Charlie, you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay, quickly, public comments. You've all had a chance to talk, I guess. Motion to adjourn. We don't have a
Motion to
non-public,
adjourn.
right?
Second.
All in
Aye.
favor? Aye.